All right. 3 hours of therapy starts now on 104.5 The Zone alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson. I'm Lucas Panzica. This is the Lee Company Titans Talkback. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045 is how you reach us. Get a word in, your reaction as the Titans fall 27-3 at the Cleveland Browns. Titans are 1-2 on the season after week 3. And Kevin Dyson, we were talking about it before the start of the show. 27-3 even may make it look a little bit closer than it actually felt.
I mean, it felt like it was a complete avalanche blowout game. It's kind of the sentiment you felt, like nothing was going right. So let's state the obvious. They got beat on every phase of the game. Well, let me give one kudos. I got to give one guy his flowers. We'll give it to Stonehouse. 7 punts, 374 yards, 53 net, average net of 46, 4 inside the 20. There you go. There goes your positive aspect of it. There goes that silver lining. You say you got a Pro Bowl punter who showed up today. But other than that, man, it was a rough go-round. There wasn't a whole lot to celebrate. We had the strip there at the end. You thought, okay, here's a momentum builder, and then the offense kind of and didn't really do anything with it. Couldn't get the king going. Tannehill, he was under distress the whole daggone game. They couldn't protect him. But aside from that, he overthrew several times, missed some people. It just was not any kind of flow and any kind of continuity to the offense today. The defense played hard. They tried. But ultimately, especially in the second half, their trying became, and we're tired or something to that effect, man. It's just Cleveland just kind of took it to them a little bit. But, and at some point, your defense can only hold up for so long. Defense has played well up until this point, hasn't given up a whole lot of points. You just want your offense to kind of come to the table and match that energy, and they haven't. And today was another illustration of that. And defense, they took some lumps today, which we hadn't seen up until this point this year. But they did some decent things, especially early on. But overall, man, I'll be interested to hear what the college got to say. It was one of those games like to me, the only shining bright spot in this was the fact that your punter is averaged over 53 yards a punt. That's phenomenal. What else can I say? Everything else was So everybody that's calling in has got something to say. I'm right there with you today.
615-737-1045 for you to chime in. We're also on 104.5 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Look, we're going to be here until 6:30 talking through every aspect of this game. And in a lot of ways for folks, KD, I think it may be back to square one when it comes to the offense, when so many things felt like they were fixed against the Chargers in week 2. In week 1 after the Saints game, everybody was kind of in meltdown mode over the offensive performance. But this does feel different, right? In New Orleans, the opportunities were there.
Right.
You're talking about one deep ball that's missed to Chigakonkwo, that's missed to Tajay Spears, that if one or both of those are hit, you win the game. Today feels different because the opportunities weren't even there.
Yeah.
It felt like they never really had a chance in this game with the way the Browns were bullying them up front.
Yeah. And there was I think Moore had a big catch. That was bright spot. And D-Hop had the toe tap catch. That was another bright spot. But those were tougher catches. I think Tannehill missed 1, maybe 2 layups today. But to your point, I'm searching for those moments, right? Like you're trying to recollect what some bright spot moments that they may have had some opportunities. And I'm sitting there racking my brain trying to figure it out when there wasn't a whole lot. As you were looking it up earlier, I mean, the fact that this team is built on physicality and running the football over the past 6, 7, 8 years, and today be dominated like they did, not even to get 30 yards rushing, that's pretty significant for a Mike Vrabel team. So I can imagine that energy on that plane ride home today, man. If you're a competitor, if you're a competitive person and you live through that game as a pro, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt for that ride home. You're going to play cards. You're going to chit-chat. You're going to do those things. But that one's going to sting. You're going to watch the film, and that one's going to sting a little bit. You can't wait to get back and put the uniform on again and get of another picture of who you are. I guarantee that.
Titans limited to 26 rush yards on 15 attempts. Derrick Henry, 20 rush yards on 11 attempts. That is an average of 1.8 yards per carry for Henry, 1.7 yards per carry for the Titans as a rushing unit. Ryan Tannehill sacked 5 times today as the Titans fall in Cleveland 27-3. Again, 615-737-1045, and we'll go to the phones. Jason is in Nashville to join the conversation. What's up, Jason?
Hey, how y'all doing?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Like, our offense is horrible. Like, it's just, we don't have an identity. We don't, like, you see all the other teams. You see San Francisco. You see all these offenses, and you know what they're trying to do. Like, you know the type of plays that they're trying to run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know from week to week what we're trying to do, right? Like, I mean, Henry, I get it. He's not the end-all, be-all, but, I mean, if you're not going to use him, then let him go. It's not his fault. Like, he can only get the ball when you give it to him. And the only silver lining I have out of this whole game is that I made a bunch of money betting on every time we would punt. Because I know we're going to punt. Like, I know we're going to punt. I can watch the game and see that we're going nowhere on offense. And then the defense is just kind of victims to the, to the offense because they're out there all the time. So, of course, they're going to look bad. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, Jason.
I mean, that's a great call. I mean, we saw a little bit of that of inconsistency in the preseason, although I thought they ran the ball pretty decent in the preseason with the backups and things in there, backup running backs specifically. But over this short sample size, is 3 weeks into the season, I haven't seen a consistent pattern of play. You talked about some flashes against New Orleans. Okay, after that, they win in week 2 against the Chargers, but I'm trying to think. There was some significant plays and things of that nature, but far and few between. Still looking for that rhythm of consistency. I mean, I had to go back. I think Derrick Henry, he had 11 carries a day. What did he have last week? Still under 20, I believe. Last week.
Henry against Los Angeles, I pull up his 2023 game log. I was searching, KD, while you were talking there to see the last time Henry had this low of an output, and the answer was 2017, a loss in San Francisco, before Derrick Henry was the version of Derrick Henry that we know. But, so Derrick Henry against the Chargers, 25 carries,
he had 25.
80 yards.
That's right. And then the week before, he had 15, 10 in the first half, 5 in the second half. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's correlation there. Maybe he needs to touch the ball 20-plus times. Today just wasn't there. I mean, they were 3 and out, couldn't run the football. I mean, 11 touches. It seemed like he had 30 touches. They were so ugly. It just never really could get going. So I get that from that aspect of it today because they really didn't get anything rolling at all today. But to that caller's point is, what are we now? Like, you know what I mean? You to his point, you look at somebody like San Francisco who utilizes 2 or 3 receivers in a multiple facet set. Like they're runners, they're screen guys, they're run after catch guys, they're vertical guys. Then you look at somebody like Miami, they're utilize their little midget wide receivers as speed guys and creating matchups and getting vertical. And so you see kind of their makeup. As far as for the Titans, we're not exactly sure. And I think some of that is still trying to learn, this coordinator who's still trying to learn the players. So hopefully it gets better. But today, it was just, I mean, again, I'm not playing. I'm not coaching. You're not playing. You're not coaching. I can imagine what they feel right now. That's, you put that out there to the world, man. That's terrible. I mean, they had a bad game today.
Well, to Jason, the caller's point on not having an identity, not being sure what this offense is supposed to be, do you feel like we saw potentially the best version of that last week against the Chargers, where they got away from the over-reliance on Henry on first and second down runs and that predictability that plagued them through 2022, and sprinkling that stuff in with the play-action passing game that was efficient and effective against the Chargers? Tyjae Spears, Derrick Henry in the backfield. They were doing different things on offense, and Ryan Tannehill has an efficient performance. They're able to run the ball effectively enough to set up the play-action. To me, I feel like that is the version of the Tim Kelly offense that could be operating at its best. Whereas today, no matter what you're trying to do, it's almost as though you didn't have a chance to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I see your point. And I think, yes, to a certain extent, I agree with that. I still think because we don't have a good sample size of consistency, I think, winning formula, especially knowing Vrabel in his short stint here, is I want to run the football effectively. I want to build my passing game around that. And yes, they gave a little bit of that last week against LA, but in this week they just couldn't get off the snide, man. It was just it was like one step forward, 3 steps back. They just really could not get into anything. I don't know how deep into his playbook he was actually going into today. That just wasn't there. The Tannehill was skittish. I mean, he had been getting pressure. I hadn't even looked at the total defensive stats. How many quarterback pressures did they have? It seemed like he was under pressure every time he was stepping back. And I'm exaggerating, but it felt like that. Myles Garrett at one point, he had 3.5 sacks, ended up with 3.5.
Yeah, Garrett's final numbers were 3.5, 3 of those in the first half.
I mean, it was just a rough output. So, I think, ultimately, that's the game plan. Be able to run the ball effectively, build your passing game off of that running game, whether it be play action passing or maybe and being efficient, moving the change with intermittent passing. I thought they did that pretty well last week. But even last week, there was a lull in time where they weren't very productive. But then when they needed it, they made some plays. D-Hop got the big first down catch and things of that nature. So they were able to overcome a down period and come back and win that football game. Well, today they just never ever got out the starting blocks. It was like they was running a 100-meter sprint, and they were still back in the starting blocks, it felt like, the whole game.
615-737-1045. We go to Eric, who is in Nashville, joins us on Lee Company's Titans Talkback. Afternoon, Eric.
Hey, guys, the only thing that would have made this better is if the Colts had lost. But now with them winning, they're actually leading the division. So that's probably the only downer part about
Great
that.
point.
But guys, let me say this. Offense and defense both stuck, like it was said on the broadcast. And I'm going to get to the defense in a minute. But first of all, guys, I'll be honest, I had no problem with them going for it on that third down play right before the half. But what are you going to do is Taylor doesn't even have a chance to throw an incomplete pass, but he can line up for a field goal. So I didn't have a problem with the play call. But it's the same old thing with the offense. I mean, we gave up 3 sacks week 1, 5 sacks last week, 5 sacks today. He's running for his life back there. It's like, what are you going to do? And then you get holding calls, false starts calls, and just drives we can't complete anything when he's running for his life. And I thought, guys, when it was 27-3, they should have brought Malik Willis in there. Tannehill did not need to come back out there for that one more series because I was afraid he was going to get killed back there. I mean, luckily, didn't get hurt, but when it was 27-3, Tannehill should not have been out there again for that drive he was out there for. Guys, the defense, it's just so frustrating. It's like, what was going on? We had the holding calls, illegal contact calls, and both on the first and last touchdown was just so frustrating. Where on the first touchdown, where it made it 10-3, the receiver was wide open in the corner end zone. The defender wasn't even looking at the ball. He was looking at the receiver run past him. And then on that Amari Cooper play, it was just so frustrating to see Cooper just run past 2 defenders. And again, defenders not looking at the ball, just let them run past, run through, and get that touchdown. And it's just like the same thing where we had positive plays where you got sacks or tackles for loss. Deshaun Watson, give him credit, was able to scramble out, threw some just great passes, and just could not get key stops where we needed. It's just offense, defense, just both were just terrible. Guys, y'all take care. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Eric. 8 penalties, 80 yards, Dice, for the Titans.
For the Titans. 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 8 quarterback hurries for the Browns today. That was a significant number. Those are 2 game numbers. Like that's pretty significant. So yes, he was scrambling for his life, as the caller talked about earlier today. I mean, just a second ago. And you look at those numbers, that means they are in your backfield. They are winning that battle up front. That is pretty significant number. Those are 2 game number totals that you have for this one game. And then you add on top of a team that's usually prides itself on being a pretty disciplined team to have a lot of penalties that, if you're struggling on either side of the football, but especially on offense, you definitely can't have penalties. It just sets you back even further. And again, to that point, like you finally get something going, you get a penalty and it moves you back. You get something going, you get the sack that moves you back. And, so those are pretty significant moments in the game where you never know if you don't have the sack or the penalty that could have changed maybe the momentum or even kept the game to a point where you could have a chance late in the game. But today, no, they had no shot.
Early in the game, Titans are getting beat up front. Obviously, the scoreline's still close, but it never really felt like the offensive line got any push, KD. And at some point early in the second quarter. I wrote it down. At the 9:39 mark of the second quarter, the Titans offense was without a first down and only 2 total yards of offense. Now, you looked like the Titans had an opportunity to get back in the game at the end of the first half, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly they put together a nice drive. They get down into the red zone. Ryan Tannehill takes a sack, no timeouts. Myles Garrett, his 3rd sack of the half, and you go into halftime with the opportunity to cut it to a score. Instead, at halftime, it's a 10-point game. That felt like a massive moment in this football game.
That's a significant moment because it's almost like when they came out second half, they didn't recover from that sack. And because from that point on, I mean, they how many yards total did they have from that point on? And it's 94 total yards
on the
day anyway. So it wasn't like they were having a great offensive day anyway. But that really only had 2 significant drives and one you just talked about. But after that moment, it's just like that was so deflated that I don't think they ever put air back in the tires. They ever put air back in the tires because it just came out in the second half. It was just as flat as when they left to go into halftime.
I'm having to double, triple check this math because the Titans had 68 net yards at halftime. That means 26 yards throughout the course of the second half.
And think about it. And most of that came in that drive right before in that first half. So, they got answers. And again, there's been a couple of times I'm interested to hear Vrabel on his Monday morning presser and hear what's going on. This week's going to be intense. You know, Bengals are probably underachieving to where everybody thought they would be at this year, especially offensively. And shoot, if I'm being candid, after watching Cleveland last Monday night, I was like, oh, the defense is going to tee off on them, going to turn the ball over, create short fields, give offense an opportunity to score some points. I was wrong because Cleveland came out and looked like a Super Bowl contender today is how they looked, especially on defense. And if Watson plays like he did today for the remainder of the season, they're going to be hell to deal with, man. Nobody's going to want to play the Browns. But last week against the Steelers, I thought, the same old Browns, they're going to struggle. Their defense is good, but their offense is going to struggle. But today, they flipped that.
By far, Deshaun Watson's best performance as a Cleveland Brown.
Absolutely.
That was a lot of the talk this week is that Deshaun Watson's not right.
Yeah.
He has not felt settled in, confident. You could see it in his eyes, all the
missed
different ways.
a lot of throws last week.
Yes, he's been off the mark. He's been errant. He hasn't been using his athleticism to his advantage, turning the ball over. I mean, Watson had lost 3 fumbles through the course of the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, man.
And he turns around today, goes 27 of 33, 289 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns, 4 scrambles for 16 yards, but he was able to avoid sack after sack, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
Was tough to bring down, and what he was doing on the perimeter was really hurting the Titans as he's able to get away from those pressures. When Jeffrey Simmons has you wrapped up in the backfield, typically he's bringing you down, and Watson was spinning out of that.
Man. And again, he looked like what I think they wanted to invest in, like what he did at Houston, a playmaker. He's getting in the rhythm, and he is a pocket passer. But he does have that ability. He ran a little bit more last week than he did today. Maybe, and again, he didn't have to as much today. But he showed that escapability to be able to extend plays, which for I don't care what corner it is, you can be a Hall of Famer like Dion. It's hard to cover guys for that long and with that kind of speed and across the field like that. So, yeah, man, I did not expect their offense to look the way they did today, especially losing their running back, losing Chubb. I know they signed what's the name?
Kareem Hunt. Yeah, his first game back.
Yeah, and I thought, well, okay, he's a veteran, but how much will we see of him versus Ford, et cetera, et cetera? But yeah, man, he raised up to this challenge and showed you why he's a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback.
Well, that's the thing. The Browns didn't really run the football. Right? 31 carries as a team, 78 total yards and a touchdown as a rushing unit. And Kareem Hunt with 5 carries for 13 yards. Jerome Ford, 10 carries, 18 yards. He had a touchdown. Ford also had a receiving touchdown as well. But the Browns able to move the ball on the Titans enough. It didn't feel like the Browns' offense was moving up and down on the Titans in the first half, right?
At all.
Defensively, they were able to keep them in the game.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing this year with the Titans. Their defense has been playing pretty well, and I don't know if it got to the point of fatigue of carrying that weight, that burden all up until this point, but at some point it had to break, and it looked like it. Now maybe just cracked, it didn't break in the second half of this game. The Browns had a good rhythm. Deshaun was converting. I think they were 6 of 13 on third downs. So that's right at about 50%. So 48, 46, 40,
That's
yeah,
right,
46%. So, they weren't able to get off the field on third down, second half. So, from a Titans perspective, when your defense is playing well, and we talked about it, you keep an NFL opponent under 20, usually you got a chance to win a football game, as we're looking at some of these blowouts that happened today. But usually, if you keep an opponent under 20, you give yourself a good chance to win. And the Titans have been doing it. They're one of the best defenses in the National Football League until that second half of today.
And meanwhile, the Broncos couldn't keep the Dolphins under 70 today in a
that's crazy.
blowout win for Miami. 615-737-1045. We go to Tristan, who's in Brentwood, joining us on the Lee Company Titans Talkback. What's up, Tristan?
Yes, Ryan Tannehill, he needs to retire or sit down, and we need to start Malik Willis or Will Levis or go draft a quarterback and get a receiver also, because we've been just scoring field goals, and last week we did score our first offensive touchdown, 2 offensive touchdowns, but this offense needs to step up, or we need to get some offensive players for next year, and see what we have in Malik Willis and Will Levis and ride with them this year. And that's what I had to say.
Thanks for the call, Tristan.
Yeah. You're always looking to build on your roster, and we don't know what's going to happen beyond this year with Tannehill. And, we've yet to see Levis in a game opportunity. I've heard good things about him from practice and things like that. But, we saw him get Chicago, but not when it counts yet, I guess is what I'm getting at. So I don't know what the trajectory is for Tannehill beyond 2023. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. You drafted 2 quarterbacks in succession in earlier rounds. Both of them have different talents and abilities, but are they the quarterback that's going to lead you to the Super Bowl? I don't know, and you don't know till they get out there, right? But you got to have playmakers around them, and even more importantly, you got to be able to protect and move the pile up front. And today was not a good day for the offensive line. Now, we're talking offense globally as a whole, play calling included, performance of the quarterback, running back, all of them. But at the end of the day, offensive line struggled today too, a lot. There's not no two to it. They struggled. They couldn't protect. They were getting pressured. They were getting the backfield, tackle for losses, pressures, the whole nine. Offensive line struggle. So regardless of Tannehill being here, not being here, Derrick Henry being here, not being here, you gotta solidify that and get that going. You can't have that big of a discrepancy of performance like they had today. They got beat up today.
Well, the easy answer, and we appreciate the call, Tristan, to that call, though, would be how much different is that with Malik Willis behind center or Will Levis behind center, if not worse?
Yeah.
But it did feel like the offensive line regressed today, right?
Today.
After a first 2 weeks that you felt was adequate, right?
Yeah.
Fair to say?
Yeah.
Through the first couple of weeks?
Absolutely. And especially last week when Ravens came in, the unique thing about that is you didn't hear his name being called. And that was a good thing, in my opinion, because that means he wasn't getting penalties. That means, those type of things weren't happening. The negative plays, the plays that kill your drive. He didn't give up a sack or anything like that. Today was just evident. And, it wasn't like they moved Myles Garrett from lineman to lineman to get him in best position. They just lined him up over there on the other side and said, hey, we're going to beat Dillard, and he can't stop you. So let's see what happens. If you're going one-on-one with this guy, we believe you're better than him, and you go prove it. And he went out there today and did what he did.
615-737-1045 for your reaction to the Titans' 27-3 Week 3 loss at the Cleveland Browns. Lines are loaded, so we go back to the phones. Mitch is in Nashville joining us on Titans Talkback. Hey, Mitch.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the offensive line also. Seems to me that's about the worst offensive line performance I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. I've been watching it a long time.
Dang.
I don't think it's gotten any worse. Have y'all seen any worse than that?
I've seen a few. I seen a few. It was I'm trying to recollect. There was that one when Tannehill got sacked like 7-8 times against Arizona.
Well, I would raise you the Bengals offensive line performance against the Titans here at Nissan
They say
Stadium.
that
and
was
playoff,
terrible.
obviously, Bengals
Yeah.
were able to pull that one out.
And then there was another game when I was a kid with Derrick Thomas as we watched the Chiefs, and he had like 9-10 sacks in a game. That has to be up there. But
Well, I know we're missing 2 players.
yeah,
One suspended. He's 3 more games, and there's one that had surgery.
yeah,
How long is it going to take to repair this? Because this is intentional. This is not a college where you just don't have the ability to get the players. They get to hire these guys. They hired Dillard in the off season for a bunch of millions. That's not acceptable.
Thanks for the call, Mitch.
yeah. No, I appreciate the call. Is he obviously he's a kind of the next guy. I think he's kind of filling in maybe right now. I don't know. I don't know what the plan's going to be when everybody gets back, but
They're talking about Andre Dillard?
yeah, I don't know what the plan's going to be when everybody gets back from suspension and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he struggled today. No ands, ifs, buts about it. It was a struggle today. Myles Garrett took advantage of whatever he felt like he had on this man. He felt like he was just the better man on mano-a-mano, and he went out there and he proved it. There was one case where he got a sack, and I want to say it was the one that pushed him out of the field goal right for half, where Spears released out in the pass pattern and I thought, man, chip him. And he went right by him, and that's he got the sack, moved him out, field goal range, the whole nine. I was thinking, man, Tajay, bump him, shoulder pad him, something, slow him down. And he didn't. He went on to his pass pattern. Now, that's probably the play. That's probably what he's called to do. But I just remember for every reason, I think it was that play, that one right before half. And I was thinking, man, just throw that shoulder in his side right now, slow this thing down. But no, he went to his route. So I wasn't paying attention enough to see if they adjusted that, to see if they started saying, chip him before you go out or whatnot, keeping guys in and rotating their or shifting their protections or anything like that. But I just remember that play specifically thinking, oh, that was a prime opportunity for me. He's a short guy, could hit him right in his rib cage. Not saying trying to hurt him, but just let him know, the bear, slow him down a little bit. But he didn't, and he ended up with a sack. So that one just stuck out, and I think it was that last one right before half.
Titans fall 27-3 in Cleveland. We know you've got reactions to get off your chest. It's why we're here. 615-737-1045. Going right back to the phones when we come back. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. It wasn't pretty, but the Titans come back home after a 27-3 loss at the hands of the Cleveland Browns at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Titans are 1-2 after week 3. Again, 27-3 the final. Alongside Titans legend Dr. Kevin Dyson and our producer Jackson Williams, I'm Lucas Panzica. Lee Company presents Titans Talkback, and the Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. You can protect your home, too. Your next play? Visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Back to the phones, 615-737-1045. As soon as one line drops off, another fills in. We are with you until about 6:30, taking you right up to Westwood One coverage of Sunday Night Football on 104.5 The Zone. And we go to Steve in Franklin. Welcome to Titans Talkback.
Hey, guys. Indy Nation, shout out to Dr. Dyson. Nice seeing you out there, man. I think Vrabel's seat's got to start getting warm at this point because he's got the OC that he wanted. He's got the DC that he wanted. And we haven't had an elite offensive line since about, 20. And Taylor Lewan was never great after the PED. They traded Roger instead of Taylor, which I thought was a bad move. It just feels like at some point Vrabel has got to take responsibility for the offensive line because let's face it, what offense can be great without a really great offensive line? It's pretty rare. So I'm saying, all right, Braves, you kind of got everything that you wanted, and so now we're waiting to see what that looks like. And so far, it's not looking great. What do you guys think about that? A lot of things I love about Coach Vrabel, but gosh, I'm not convinced at this point. Thoughts?
Thanks for the call, Steve.
I mean, I think that's obviously of concern, especially of late. I think being optimistic from last year's perspective, having like Taylor Lewan coming back from injury and things of that nature, you thought the output and production was going to be better than what it ended up being because of who was in there. But they were dealing with more than we probably even know from an injuries perspective and aches and pains. So there was a lot of struggles offensively. But they found some bright spots last year in the offensive line, coming that so much so that they're here this year. Now, that remains to be seen. I thought, for the most part, at the time, I thought the Titans offensive line was progressing in the right direction. However, the last 2 weeks has been trending, well, at least today for sure, it's trending opposite direction. I think you brought up maybe the Chargers. There was a moment, Derrick Henry 25 for 80, which that's a lot of carries for a lot, decent yards, but nothing. Usually 25 yields about 100 yards a carry, and that's going to put you at about four yards per rush. So, yes, I think it is of concern. I think even as a play caller, if your confidence level in what you can and cannot call is predicated on what the offensive line ability is at this moment. So we talked about last week, they took a shot, and it was a two-man route. Well, that speaks volumes too, because you're thinking, I want to take a shot. I got to leave everybody in here to protect. So that speaks volumes. So, and then I talked about today, they released the bag. You start to keep the backs in a little bit more because you're not having faith in what your offensive line is able to do. So I don't know. I think, that's going at any level of football, the offense and defensive line is crucial to your success of what you want to do as a play caller. How much what I can call, when I can call it, play action passing, vertical game, running game is how well are my guys matched up against the opposite guys, how well they win in these battles. And today they lost. So, yeah, I'm not giving a pass to the offense coordinator for this game by any stretch of imagination. You can do some things to help you guys out for sure. But it's hard to be a play caller when you got a group, specifically your offensive line, struggling like they seem to struggle today. So you're at that point, you're just kind of like hoping, you're grabbing at a play, hoping that it's going to work because the confidence level of them being successful or doing their job is low. Because the offensive line struggled. I mean, they gave up a lot today. They They weren't getting any push down the field. Obviously, averaging 1.5 yards per rush between I think Derrick Henry's in the top 5 all-time of yards per carry in his career. And then today, to average under 2 yards a carry, that starts up front.
Yeah, well, Henry came into today with, that number on the table, 97 yards away from tying Earl Campbell as the second highest lead rusher as far as a career for the franchise. And so he is 20 yards closer to that. But obviously you came in thinking he'd be a lot closer than just 20 yards. So Henry now 77 yards away from tying Earl Campbell.
Maybe he just wants to break it at home. That's what it is.
Maybe against the Cincinnati Bengals next week. But Mike Vrabel's not on the hot seat.
No,
right?
I don't think so.
This team is going to – the AFC South is not going to be a division that is decided, midway through the regular season.
No.
Right? The Colts got a huge win today in Baltimore without Anthony Richardson.
What surprises me, actually.
Overtime win. Justin Tucker missing a 61-yard field goal in the last play of the game. It falls short of the crossbar. Back and forth overtime. The Colts ultimately get the victory. The Texans went down to Jacksonville and kind of smacked around the Jags.
I'm way surprised about that one.
Never trailed. Was 17-0. Houston never really looked back.
Wow,
and
that one surprises me.
By the way, one of what will probably end up being the funnest plays of the NFL regular season, fullback Andrew Beck, an up back on a kickoff return, gets a bouncing ball at the 15-yard line, kind of muffs it, fumbles it, picks it up on the bounce, and then runs it 85 yards for a kick return for a touchdown for Houston. It was just that kind of day for the Texans. But the point is, this division is, I think, going to be a photo finish, KD, the way it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And Mike Vrabel's not going to be on the hot seat at any point as long as the Titans are still in it. But with that said, you've lost 9 of your last 10.
That's the big thing. He's lost 9 of the last 10. And the division I thought was getting stronger. Aside from, you thought Houston would be another year or two away. I thought the Colts are going to improve, but it depends on the rookie quarterback or whatever. But and I thought Jacksonville, what they had coming back and what they signed, like Calvin Ridley, I thought it was a good addition for them. I thought, man, this is their division to lose. Well, so much for believing that. Houston came out and just smacked them around a little bit. So they're trying to put their names in that conversation. But that tells you how close the NFL actually is between the haves and have-nots, who's good and who's not so good. I don't want to say it because it's not necessarily bad football teams. It's just people playing bad. But everybody plays at an elite level. And some people got that energy, that mojo of how to win the football games, and others, they do what the Titans did today, and they crumble. And right now the Titans are in that down phase, that down slope of trying to scrap and find ways to win and then stack wins. And then you start building the identity of winning close games and things of that nature. And today was just a rough one, and they look rough. So to me, though, to your point, the shining light is the division is nobody that's striking a stranglehold. I thought Jacksonville would be the ones everybody was chasing. But after their performance today themselves, I'm like, shoot, Titans are right in it. So this week is crucial. I mean, it's the AFC opponent at that. They keep staying in this AFC other than New Orleans, I guess. But staying in the AFC, this is crucial. It's an AFC game. It's the Bengals, who probably, depends on what they do this afternoon, it's looking for a win. They need something good to happen. Burrow's struggling a little bit. Every game's huge in that football league, but this game coming up, man. This can change everything, because if you lose this one, Houston wins, Jacksonville wins. I don't know who they play, and the Colts win. Now you're sitting there at that bottom of a division that is very winnable.
Indianapolis hosts the LA Rams in Week 4. The Houston Texans host the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's a tough one.
And the Jacksonville Jaguars host the Atlanta Falcons. Every AFC South team is at home in Week 4, and every AFC South team plays a losable /winnable game, right? Like most games in this league. So, yeah, like we said, it's going to be a photo finish. It's going to come down to the end. And Lethal Latin in the F&M Bank chat, where you can hang out with us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, says, completely disagree. Mike Vrabel is on the hot seat. So let's say the Titans beat the Bengals next week. Mm-hmm. Is Mike Vrabel on the hot seat when we're talking about it on Titans Talkback after the fact?
I just don't think he is on hot seat. I just think I don't know Rand Carthon. I haven't really had a chance to sit and talk to him and delve into his philosophy. I don't know how much of Amy Adams' ear he has compared to Vrabel, because he has her ear. They've been very close. and ultimately it comes down to her. Meaning Rand, can make a suggestion that we want to go a different direction, but ultimately it's going to be her decision. And I just don't see that. Now that doesn't, I mean, I'm right in, that we've seen stranger things happen in professional sports where you think we've seen a guy get fired after winning a playoff game, which seems weird, So I don't know, man. I don't necessarily think he's in the hot seat. I think with the circumstances being what they are this year, new general manager, and a shift like that, I think he may get, and I put these in quotes, a pass this year to build it. Next year, if it's another struggle, then we can talk about the hot seat. But that's just my opinion. I just don't see it, just how they're made up and how the organization seems to be flowing right now. I just don't see that being the case, but I could be wrong. This is an instant gratification business, man. Everybody wants it right now. You want to win. He's been here a long time, longer than most head coaches in National Football League in their spots, except for like Harbaugh, who's been in Baltimore forever. But he's one of the most tenured coaches in the league right now. I think he's the most tenured in the AFC South. So, I mean, could be. I just don't see that right now. I think he's still going to be here trolling the sidelines in 2024 as well.
And it feels like there is a commitment to him, right?
Yeah,
and guiding this franchise through this transitional year, because it is a transitional year.
Yeah.
You have Ryan Tannehill in the last year of his deal with two young quarterbacks backing him up. The future of the franchise is in the building. The president of the franchise is in the building. The hot seat to me just can't be a week-to-week thing, Katie.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know we can play the ifs and fifths and hypotheticals game, but if the Titans were to beat the Bengals and suddenly he's not on the hot seat, you either are or you aren't.
Right. I agree with that. And I think, too, for like somebody like Rand Carthon, who's coming in his first regime, it's his first opportunity to lead an organization and things of that nature and working with a coach. If he was going to do anything, you would probably got a sense of it all. I haven't gotten that sense. He hasn't really said much about the philosophy of coaching and things of that nature. He's really stuck to his guns on developing players, building players, bringing in guys that fit the ideas of what you want your organization and your team to be built on. He keeps sharing that narrative, which is very similar to what Vrabel says. So I'm basing off of outsider looking in and trying to read between the lines on the organization, which they have not given me any indication that he is on the hot seat. I think from a fan's perspective, when you've lost 9 of 10 games, or 9 of 10 or 8 or 9 of 10 games,
9 of 10, yeah.
I think people start stacking that in their brain like he has to be on the hot seat because we do live in a microwave culture where we want instant success right now, and we want what we want. We put it in the microwave, ding, it's done. And I think with that mindset that we all have now in society, I think we all already put that, he's 1-2. They struggled this week on both sides of the ball, and they don't seem to be getting better. He must be on a hot seat, but I just don't think that's the case yet.
615-737-1045. These are the conversations that come up after games like this, though.
Yeah.
Right?
And they should. I mean, everybody's being evaluated, right? I think that's this business in itself. It's an entertaining business. So you're being evaluated every time you step out on the practice field, especially on game days. And that's not just the players. That's the organization. That's the coaching staff. Everybody's being evaluated, and you're in a public eye, in a public seat. So you're going to be watched, and people are going to be critical. It's something that took me years to accept, but that is part of that job. And so you're going to be critiqued. So they could have won, I don't know, 31-10 today, dominated the Browns, and he would have made a bad call, and people would have called in and say, he can't lead the team because look at that call. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He almost cost us a game because of that call. So you're not going to make everybody happy anyway. But what you want to see from a organizational standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, is progression. Are we getting better? Is there continuity? Are the guys playing hard for you? Are the guys buying into your philosophy? Because I shouldn't even say play hard, because you're going to play hard in the National Football League. You just are. You're not, because if you don't, you're going to get hurt, and you're going to put that on film, and it's going to be hard for you to find a job anyway. So I shouldn't say that. But what is the outlook of your team? Are they getting better? What's the progression? Do you got the right people in place making the right kind of decision? Meaning, do you have the right coordinators? Do you have the right linebacker coach? Are you doing things from a leadership managerial standpoint that makes me second guess your ability as a head coach? or solidifies my thoughts of you as a head coach. And that's the things that we're not privy to what that evaluation process of Rand and Amy is on the coaches and the head coach and his staff. We as fans can look at it from a global standpoint and say, yeah, he's lost 9 or 10. He's got to be in the hot seat because everybody else across the league, somebody won 7 games and lost 10 and they were out, let alone being 1 of 9 in the last 10 games. So I think from our standpoint as a fans, yeah, we want our team to be going to Super Bowls every other year. But the reality of it is I think they're going to evaluate the whole thing in totality because he has had a lot of success here in the 6-7 years that he's been here.
Well, they evaluated a 7-game losing streak to end the year last year. And even before that losing streak finished out, John Robinson's fired, right? John Robinson's fired before the end of the season last season.
To me, that made a statement of Vrabel's my guy.
Exactly.
To me. So
what happens? 7-game losing streak. Titans lose the division after winning it in back-to-back years. What changes are made? The general manager's fired, and the head coach is given more responsibility, right? Collaboration with the new general manager.
Yeah.
So it feels like the franchise has told us what they think of Mike Vrabel, and they're very aligned in that regard.
I agree, and that's why I don't think he is anywhere close to the hot seat. Now, say he goes 3-14 this year, and they struggle, meaning they have a lot more games like today than they had against the Chargers or even the Saints, because the offense was terrible against the Saints, but they were in the game. So this game, although it was 27-3, it seemed like it was 50-something to 3. It
seemed like it was 70-20, like the Broncos.
Right. It seemed terrible, right? It just didn't seem like anything was going right. Now, so if he ends up 3-14 on the year and he has more of the days like today than he had games like last week, I think, everything's on the table at that point. Everything. I think you got to look at it. And I think if that's the case and they do say – we're going with Vrabel next direction. Next question is, which happens a lot too, is if it's not the head coach, what other changes can we make? Well, there's 2 other opportunities you can. On one hand, we got to get more or different players, better players or different players, whatever you deem necessary, and more or different or better coaches, assistant coaches. So what happens? Well, we've seen in the past couple of years they've moved some assistant coaches around and brought some different people in that share philosophies. We've gone to this is now the 3rd coordinator under Vrabel, right? This is 3rd coordinator under Vrabel.
Talking about offensive coordinator?
Offensive coordinator, excuse me.
Yes.
Fourth. This is the 4th.
Because it would have been LaFleur, Arthur Smith, Todd Downing, and now Tim Kelly.
I forgot about LaFleur. I forgot about him. And he's a head coach.
Yeah.
And having some good success. But I forgot about him. But my point is he has gone through 4 different shifts of philosophy and coordinators trying to align with his thoughts as far as a head coach and probably a defensive-minded head coach at that. And this right now, they seem to be struggling offensively. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's not completely the play caller. Offensive line struggled today. It's hard to call. I don't care how good of a play call you are. If your offensive line is struggling like they seem today, it doesn't matter. I can call the best play drawn up on the chalkboard today. I'm saying chalkboard. I'll call it dry erase board. It's coming in 2023, KD. And
they got smart boards
and everything else.
And iPad.
I'm talking about chalkboard. Nobody uses chalkboards anymore, man. But you draw stuff up on whatever device you use, and of course it's going to win. But if you can't protect, you drop the ball, quarterback overthrows it, bad read, gets jammed up at the line of scrimmage, all these different factors. It doesn't matter how good of a play call it is. So at the end of the day, it all works together. It's all about that continuity. My thing is I haven't really seen a rhythm of a game plan other than a few incidences, maybe against New Orleans, but last week in particular. Today, there wasn't any kind of rhythm. But was that him? Or was that kind of how the offensive line and everybody was kind of struggling? It was a combination of the two. He didn't put in position that kind of helped that. They didn't make any adjustments that kind of helped the offensive line that seemed to be struggling with the pass rush and pressure. So it's a lot to evaluate from our standpoint. So I'll be curious to hear, like what Vrabel says tomorrow after they have opportunity to watch this film, because we're tearing this thing up. Fans are tearing this thing up. But I know from experience, it's never as bad as you think it is. It's never as good as you think it is. You can blow somebody out, and you look on film like dang, we could have scored 3 more touchdowns. You made this block. I would have scored right here if you caught this pass or whatever it is. And then you look at a game like today, you be like, oh, man, that's just a bad read. If you make the right read, you're right there. You get a pick. They don't score. Oh, if you don't jump off sides, we're right here 5 yards. And you're like, man, we're a few plays away. That 27-3, easily we're in the game. It's 17-14. Who knows? Like, it's because you look at the film, and it really is just like a play or something that happened. You're like, oh, one guy missed his block. Dang, if he stays on it, he's wide open. Tannehill hits him. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out here. But that's ultimately, when you have a game like this, you're going to watch the film and evaluate. But the things you can correct as a player is how hard you play and knowing your assignment and doing that the best and winning your one-on-one battles. That's the things you can control as a player. I can't control what calls are being made. I can't control what's being put into the game plan. I can't control any of those things, but I can control my aspect of my play. From a coach's perspective, only thing he can control is I can put players in position to be successful. After that, I'm out of control because I'm relying on you to do your job to make this work. And so it goes hand in hand. And today it just didn't. That hand in hand was separated. They just weren't gelling. It didn't work. They didn't have any kind of continuity. The offensive line struggled. Looks like the offensive coordinator was struggling because he just grasping at straws to find something to work. The running game didn't work. Derrick Henry looked frustrated. And before he even got started, he had people wrapping him up. It just was bad offensive football today. And hopefully, as they look at this film, again, hopefully it usually is. It's not as bad as you think, but it's a lot of correctable stuff. I'm hoping that correctable stuff would hopefully start building on confidence we can see something consistent and they put some points on the board. Because right now, they're below average offensive football team.
615-737-1045 to join us on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit leecompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. Adam in Portland has been waiting patiently. Afternoon, Adam.
Hey, boys. Hey, I'm not as optimistic as you guys are, so I'm gonna lead out with that. So, Dice, man, I love you. I've followed you since before your BA plays in 99 and 2000. I followed you forever. So I'm a huge fan. However, I feel like you are looking at you're too optimistic. I want you to start being a little more emotional, like a sour fan like I am. So Vrabel, I feel like Vrabel, he not only y'all nailed it when you said he doesn't adjust. Why was Sean Murphy-Bunting on the field? He killed us the first 2 weeks. And he killed us today. I don't know how many points he cost us. I would love to break it down and see how many points he cost us. He shouldn't have been on the field. So I put that soft, undisciplined defense on Vrabel. I also put it that Vrabel did not make a single adjustment. I know his coordinators suck. We know that. But I put it on him because he knows them. Those are his boys. Like, that's my problem is you had Jim Schwartz, who killed us today, in the building. How do you not know that dude wants to be a defensive coordinator again? Why is he not your choice for defensive coordinator? Like, that kills me that he was on the roster and he got out of there. Lastly, I'm really disappointed in Tannehill to the point where I've literally went through all 31 starters other than Tannehill, and I would take him over Tannehill. And I challenge you guys to put a name out there that I wouldn't take. But even Andy Dalton, I'm over here watching on Red Zone, like, pick apart Seattle. I'm like, Tannehill couldn't do that. So, like, every other player I would take over Tannehill.
Justin Fields?
I would take him, absolutely, because he's got upside. Tannehill doesn't need reps, bro. That's my problem. Justin Fields needs reps. Tannehill doesn't. We know what he's got. So, yeah, I'm low, dude. I've already been to Justin Fields. I thought maybe it was Fields, but no, I take him.
Thanks for the call, Adam.
No, man, I appreciate it. But here's the thing. I can't be emotional about it. Like, that's not what our job is, man. We're supposed to be, like, analyze it and give it our perspective. I can't be emotional about it. Don't get me wrong. I was hard to watch. I watched that game because I had to talk about it. I wouldn't want to watch that game. I would have turned it off, turned it to another NFL game. It was way more competitive or more exciting, like Miami.
There were some good ones.
But I had to watch it because we're going to talk about it here. But so yeah, man. Don't get me wrong. I'm with you. I'm not saying I'm not giving him a pass by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just giving you perspective of a player and a coach has been in locker rooms and has been in the process of getting my butt whooped and having to pull up my pants and come back and get ready to do it all over again. Especially in professional sports, man. When usually you usually, today aside, looks like you are one possession away every time. You usually, because it's so balanced, that's why possession is so crucial in the National Football League, because usually most games come down to a possession or two. Well, today it didn't. The Titans, they got dominated. It didn't come down to a possession two. It was just like they just got beat. It was like a SEC school playing I'm sorry, I'm not going to disrespect nobody, but playing like a smaller school. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to disrespect the conference, but I mean seriously, and that's kind of how it looked today. They just got dominated, and more embarrassingly was they got dominated up front, and that is where, from a Vrabel's perspective, I can imagine as a head coach, where you're like, man, we bring the fight to people. We don't get whooped, and they got whooped today. And so, yeah, so emotional or not, no, I'm gonna give you perspective, and I'll tell you what it is. But I'm not gonna get overly expect. I gotta be half full at sometimes, because at that point, that's what we got. So we can't. Where's Tannehill gonna go? Who you gonna bring in? You can't bring anybody in today that's gonna fix it. So you got Tannehill from now until January, whatever it is, and then what? You see what happens in the offseason.
The best option on your roster right now.
It
right?
is.
That's the reality of the situation. Ryan Tannehill's the best quarterback on your roster.
I mean, and nobody's going to trade for a quarterback in that deadline. I'm trying to think of a backup that anybody in Tennessee would consider to be the starter in any of the other 31 teams. Because usually if you're a starter, they're not giving that guy up, so you're not going to trade quarterback for quarterback. But that's the only other option people are talking about, is trading for another quarterback for the remainder of the year. So again, that's not even realistic. So if that's not really on the table to trade for a starting quarterback who is a backup on one of the other teams in the National Football League, as is anyway, then we need to utilize what we have here and try to get better with it, because Tannehill's going to be here. Now, if Levis or Malik are progressing along in practice to a point where they feel like, you know what, let's go with them and see how this goes. Maybe they give us a spark. I don't know. That could be an option, but I don't see anybody this year from outside that's already here coming in and being the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Titans in 2023. 2024 remains to be seen, but for right now, 3 games in, Tannehill is the guy, unless they go with one of the 2 younger guys. And that, I think, me and you talked about this preseason. It might have been me and Brent in week 1. At what point, though, do you make that move? If you're 1-7, do you say, you know what, thank you, Tannehill, for what you've done. We're going to play these young guys the rest of the year? Or do you just ride this out for the rest of the year and see what the season ends up, and say you end up right at about 500, 7-10, 8-9, whatever it might be, you right around 500 with Tannehill? Do you say next year we go a different direction? I don't know. I just don't know when that move it would even be considered. I mean, if we were in the middle of a season and they were 1-9, meaning losing 9 of their last 10, I think that would be the conversation we would all be having at some point, because the head coach and quarterback are 2 of the easiest fixes, or the 2 most prominent fixes that teams make. That would be the conversation. Hot seat for Vrabel and hot seat for Tannehill, because those are the 2 most recognizable positions in football.
27-3, the Titans lost at the Cleveland Browns. They rushed for only 26 yards on 15 carries. Ryan Tannehill sacked 5 times, 3.5 of those from Myles Garrett. 3 of Garrett's sacks coming in the first half. Reacting to it with you on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045. More of your phone calls when we come back. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 1045 The Zone.
Tannehill from the shotgun takes the snap. Tannehill in trouble. He's been sacked. And that's going to end the first half.
It was the one thing that could not happen in that moment. The Titans' longest drive of the afternoon, 10 plays, 55 yards, getting it down to the Cleveland 11 at the end of the first half with an opportunity with a touchdown or a field goal to make it a one-possession game going into halftime and getting the football back in the third quarter. And instead, Myles Garrett gets his third sack of the half, and the Titans, with no timeouts, forced to go into the locker room down by 10, ultimately falling at the Cleveland Browns 27-3. Alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. It's the lead company Titans Talkback. And Kevin Dyson, that play kind of encapsulated the day it was for the Titans, who just could not get out of the gates on offense.
I mean, for whatever reason, that defined the rest of the game, too. It just defined, like, the second half, they were worse than they were in the first half, which is remarkable. And I don't know, we had a caller talked about adjustments or lack thereof. I mean, I don't want to get into all that because, one, we're not in the locker room. I'm not exactly sure what their adjustment was, but we can all assume based on what we saw, it didn't look like a whole lot if they did make adjustments, they didn't work. So that second half was pretty horrendous. But that moment, that was huge right there, man. I remember thinking after I saw it, just like, you hope they can overcome that and just come back second half because it's still a ball game at that point. 13-3, still a ball game. You're still in it, but that second half is just like.
That was only their second appearance in the Cleveland red zone. Their first came on the third drive of the game when the Titans took over on the 17. Sean Murphy bunting with the strip forces the turnover. And KD, the Titans go 4 plays, -9 yards, and a Nick Folk field goal puts them on the board, their only points of the day.
Only points of the day. And again, that was one of those moments. You're like, okay, we can get something going. Cleveland really hadn't done anything to that point either. Then they give you the ball, turnover, and you think, okay, defense is stepping up once again, provided a short field, just like you want your defense to do, and 4 plays, -9.
615-737-1045. We go back to the phones. Daryl is in Hendersonville. Daryl, welcome to Titans Talkback.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, man.
I miss Mark on days like this. I miss Mark a lot, but especially on days like this because he always gives some balance. But I have to take exception to the caller that said that the Titans don't have an identity, and they do have an identity. The identity is inept draft choices in the early rounds and inept free agent signings and giving up players in free agency who go on to have successful careers at other teams. And until they are able to adjust and fix that ineptitude, they're going to continue to struggle. The caller, 1 or 2 callers ago, said that Vrabel was on the hot seat. Well, Vrabel doesn't block, and Vrabel doesn't cover. And the most effective things that the Titans linemen are good at is picking Tannehill off the ground. And the thing that our cornerbacks are best at is watching the other players back. Other than that, they're not very talented. But those 2 things they really have down. And I'm just so sick of the legacy of J-Rob living to this day. And, of course, it's only been a year. But his first and second round draft choices, particularly at cornerback, at wide receiver, and offensive line, are killing this team. And it's going to take a few years to get out of this hole. And, I don't know if the GM is the right guy to do it. I guess we'll see. And one thing that worries me was he instrumental in the Trey Lance deal? I hope he wasn't. John Lynch just got re-signed to a huge deal, so apparently he's not taking the blame for that. But if Trey Lance was his idea, that's really, really scary. But at any rate, things aren't going to change until they get these 3 positions taken care of, and then you can start building a team. They have a great defensive line, among the best in football, but every other position they're really, really sucking at it. Well, I won't say that for running back, but certainly at the skill positions and on the offensive line, it's a joke.
Thanks for the call, Daryl.
I think the offensive line is a struggle right now. That's still trying to solidify that. I thought there's a lot of changes from I'll say the last 2 years, let alone last year to this year. There's been a lot of changes up front. I'd beg to differ with the safeties. I think Hooker and Byard are a good tandem, very solid. Secondary-wise, corners still trying to find some identity. I think guys have played well in moments. Considering where we were about 2-3 years ago, I mean, maybe I'm being devil's advocate on that, but consider where you were 2-3 years ago when we were like, oh, my gosh, you got to get some corners in here. But they're struggling a little bit today. Today, everybody struggles, so I shouldn't even say that. Linebacker, still, again, it's got some new guys out there. Remains to be seen. But the defensive line, he's right. It's one of the better defensive lines, run stoppers, pass rushers, collectively as a group. They may not have that J.J. Watt type guy who is going to get you 15, 16, maybe even 20 sacks. They may not have that guy, but collectively they apply pressure and they get after the quarterbacks. So offensively, I think even like now, even with Derrick Henry, it still remains to be seen. Like, we all know running backs have a shelf life. We all do, but running backs in particular, some are in that 4 to 5, 6 year range. Some are able to extend it a lot further. And I think that's what the argument is, that conversation of the value of running back in today's football and how they're being paid and why they had that meeting amongst them. And then we saw somebody like Chubb go down, and then you sign a quality guy who was on the street like a
Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt, thank you, like a Kareem Hunt. I mean, it goes to show you just the value of running backs has changed a lot in the last year. So going back to Derrick Henry, he is a great football player. I don't know if he's Hall of Famer or not. That's not for me to judge, but he's a great football player. But all great football players need people's support. And what I mean by that, offensive line, special quarterback's got to block, receivers got to catch the ball, quarterbacks got to make the right kind of decisions. If you're the focal point every week, they're going to eliminate that. It's just coordinators. That's job 101. Let me eliminate what you're best at and make somebody else beat you. And the problem is right now is they are eliminating him, the big play. We haven't seen a big run out of him, a big play other than the screen, but nothing with the ball put into his chest. They're eliminating that, and they're saying the rest of the guys, we're going to make the rest of you beat us. And that includes the quarterback. That includes the receivers. That includes the tight ends. That includes the backup running back. But Derrick Henry is not going to be the reason why we lose this game. And that has been kind of the theme, if you will, the first few weeks of this season is we're going to take him away and see what you got and see what kind of players you really are.
Yeah, it was a struggle for the offensive line today.
Yeah.
Only 26 rush yards, 5 sacks allowed. The Cleveland Browns getting into the backfield. Ryan Tannehill, not much of a chance throughout the afternoon in the 27-3 loss. 8 quarterback hurries, 9 tackles for loss from that Browns front. 3.5 of the 5 sacks from Myles Garrett, who feasted today against the Tennessee Titans.
I'm looking at the defensive stats, man, and 40 of the 79 tackles, and it's probably more than that. I didn't even go down to like the 1 tackle guys, are from secondary guys. 3 of the top 5 were secondary: Hooker, McCrary, Fulton. They had 11, 10, 9 tackles apiece. And then 2 linebackers, Al-Shahir and Gibbons, 9 and 7 tackles. Then you go right back down, you got Bunting and Molden with 6 and 4 tackles apiece. And now when your secondary is leading your team that distinctly, like 5 of your top 7 guys or your secondary guys making tackles, there's something wrong with that. Now, you can go back and look at the stats. They weren't able to run, Browns. They didn't really get a whole thing going on the running game, but that passing game got going. So then the other part of that is, were they able to get the pressure that they had beginning the first couple of weeks? So Deshaun was uncomfortable. Well, they did a few times, but he's able to escape, broke some tackles from people we didn't think he'd break tackles from. He was able to extend plays, which I don't care how good you can be a Hall of Fame corner. That's hard to do, covering guys for that long and be on him like that. So he was able to extend some drives, but that's a telling sign to let you know that they eliminated defense line in the sense that they weren't a factor in this game because so many secondary guys had so many tackles.
Especially in the first half, you saw Deshaun Watson getting back to some of that backyard football he became known for, right?
Yeah.
Those off-schedule plays that he was making so consistently in Houston.
Yes, sir.
And he's efficient today, 27 of 33, 289 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amari Cooper on 8 targets, had 7 catches, 116 yards, and a score with a long of 43. Quite honestly, Katie, he should have had more on the play to the boundary where they rule him out of bounds, and he most certainly wasn't. It wasn't even close. I'm not sure what the side judge was looking at on that play, but he slips, or Fulton kind of tumbles down, and he could have been off and running for another score. Amari Cooper with a big day today as well against the Titans secondary. Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com, 615-737-1045 as we go back to the phones for Dr. J.
Dr. J.
What in the wide world of sports are you two knuckleheads so optimistic about?
Who's optimistic?
You said, somebody there said that they're right in the thick of the division, right in the thick of the division. They're 1-2 after finishing last season with 7 straight losses, and today they got their brains beat in.
Well, 3 games into the season, they are right into the thick of the division. We're saying, like, right now, because I was assuming, and I'm not going to speak for Lucas, but I'm assuming, I thought it was Jacksonville's division to lose. However, they lost today as well, and I believe they're 1-2. Colts are 1-2, and Houston is 1-2.
Colts 2-1.
Oh, Colts are 2-1. That's right.
Got a big win today.
That's right. They got that win today. They're 2-1, and everybody else is 1-2.
Correct.
So, yeah, right now they are in the middle of it.
Well, I think that it's clear that Arky's team that was built up very nice.
Yeah.
And now it's all his, and it's kaput. There's not one person outside of Tennessee talking about this team. I follow the national media, and they don't even think we exist.
Thanks for the call, Dr. J. Well, that's kind of always been the case, right?
Yeah. And my argument to that would be he has gone to the AFC Championship game. They won the division with 3 straight years. Just I think recent memory is what people are holding on to. It hasn't always he's had a lot of success here as a head coach. Whether it be with JR or whomever, as far as GM, he's had some success here. I think the bitterness, if you will, or whatever it is right now, is because the sample size we have from the second half of last season to the first half of this season is not good. And nobody in here is sugarcoating that. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you from my perspective of I don't think he's on the hot seat. I do not think that. Now, somebody might who does this for a living and they analyze coaches all day long, every day, they may feel different. I don't know. But as of right now, at 1-2 in the beginning of the 2023 season, I don't think he's in the hot seat. I don't think so. Now, can that change? If they go 1-7, oh, come on, definitely, obviously. But right now, I think when there was a line drawn in the sand, I'm gonna say it like this, and I don't mean it how it's going to sound, and I don't say that Vrabel did this. I'm saying there was a line drawn in the sand. It's me or JR. It's Vrabel or JR, and she chose, meaning Amy Adams chose Vrabel. So that to me speaks volumes to her trust in that coach. Now, that doesn't mean her trust can be betrayed and she can change her mind. I'm not saying that at all, but there was a line drawn in a lot of respects because the GM left, not the coach. And he was gone before the season over and not the coach. And the coach is still here. And they're still shoulder to shoulder portraying this image of family and togetherness that you don't see if a guy was on his way out the door. So that's just my opinion.
A year ago, the Titans lose a close game week 1 to the Giants, right?
Yeah. Should have won that one.
Should have won that one. Go up to Buffalo, get pummeled in week 2.
Shouldn't have won that one.
No. Never even remotely in that game in Buffalo. 41-7. And it's burn it down mode, right?
Yeah.
0-2. And the Titans obviously come back. They win a few games. They're 7-3 at one point. Then they lose the 7 in a row. They finish the year with the losing record. Division still comes down to the final game.
Still came down to the final game.
Saying the Titans are in the thick of the AFC South is not an optimistic view at what this franchise is in the spot that it's in right now, that it's all sunshine and rainbows and don't worry about the offensive line performance.
Or even an optimistic view of what happened today.
Right. It's a statement on the division.
Yes.
The division is not good right now.
No.
And the team that was supposed to take the step, like you mentioned, the Jacksonville Jaguars,
are 1-2.
Have not looked good through 3 weeks, and they couldn't even get out of the gates today against the Texans.
So none of us saying they're going to win the division right now. I'm not saying they're going to win right now. Based on what I saw today, they're not even close to winning the division. But I didn't, again, the Colts I think, are overachieving right now. And I think they have some talent because they played some people tough last year. They were in the thick of things last year as well. But you would assume with a rookie quarterback, they're going to have some growing pains. Well, he's learning fast, and then he got hurt and things of that nature. But right now, 3 games in, they are still in it. They're not out of the race for the division. They're 1 game back.
615-737-1045.
However, though, the schedule doesn't get any easier from here on.
It does not. The Cincinnati Bengals come to town a week from today, and we will talk a little more about that matchup in the Eurofix look ahead near the end of the show. We're with you until 6:30, taking reactions to a bad loss by the Titans in Cleveland, 27-3. More of your phone calls on the other side. It's Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. Titans Talkback continues on, presented by League Company here in Week 3 of the 2023 NFL season. A lot of good games around the league today. The Titans and Browns was not one of them. 27-3 is the final. Titans unable to get anything going on offense. 26 net yards in the second half for that Titans offense.
That's ugly.
That's a season low for sure. We'll have to go back and see the last time the Titans were that low as far as net yardage in one singular half. Certainly was Derrick Henry's lowest rushing output since 2017, his second year in the league before Derrick Henry became Derrick Henry, as you know him, Dr. Kevin Dyson. And it really felt like the Titans just never even had a chance to get the run game going.
At all. I mean, it's just no push up front. They were in the backfield. They were leaning on shoulders, leaving that arm free so guys could, shield blocks and make plays, make tackles. It wasn't good by any stretch of imagination. The offense coordinator really didn't get a rhythm going. There one or two times I can think of where there was opportunities. Tannehill missed the throw. There were some big catches. There was some, if I'm being the optimistic that everybody says I am. There was a couple catches. Moore had a couple one. There was a toe tap by D-Hop.
94 net yards today. DeAndre Hopkins had 48 of them receiving.
And that one was like 20-something yarder that game. Nice little, that's what you want him here for, the tough, tight catches. That's what he's been known for. But overall, man, it just even last week when you mentioned that Derrick Henry had 25 for 80, that was a hard-earned 80. And I think part of us in our recent memory, we're used to Henry getting the easy runs. He's 9 here, 26 there, 54 here, 80-yard touchdown. These are like hard-earned 80 yards. And today, how many had 20? That was a hard-earned 20, and it's only 20 yards. You just get hit, 1 yard, fall down. It was just, you couldn't get going.
Tougher pill to swallow with the Browns coming off a short week of rest, too.
And the way they looked Monday night.
Right. And Deshaun Watson not sharp against the Steelers, out of sync. Obviously, the big blow with Nick Chubb's injury, out for the season. But to get punished up front the way the Titans did against a team coming off of just 5 days rest.
Yeah. That's kind of demoralizing. And I think maybe, again, in the past, that's what Vrabel and his teams have been able to do. Chips are down. Everybody's assuming your offense is terrible. And then what do? They come out and have a great performance. So maybe we expect that next week against the Bengals. Everybody's talking bad about them. Chips are down. I'm sure the Bengals are going to come in here and be favorites going into the week by the bettors, the people that make the lines. And Titans will overcome. They'll find a way to win. Just like last week against the Chargers when everybody picked them to lose and they found a way to come out and beat the Chargers.
615-737-1045. Mario is in Memphis joining us on Titans Talkback. Hey, Mario. Mario, you there? All right, we'll go to Kenny the mailman in Ashland City. What's up, Kenny?
Fellas, how are y'all today?
What's going on, man?
Excellent. Somebody just a little while ago said the offensive line struggled a bit today. Isn't that sort of like saying the Titanic struggled a little bit on its last voyage?
Touche.
But this is for Kevin. I mean, for an offensive player, you have to have total faith and total trust. And those words are really hard to line up, and in the back of your mind is designed, well, Dillard's going to hold out Myles Garrett for 4 seconds.
Right.
And Brewer is going to fire out and block a guy 88 pounds heavier than him. What happens when you don't have your faith and trust in a design play? I'll hang up and listen, and I appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Kenny.
Oh, man. It does go hand in hand, that trust level, right? Because that becomes part of your culture and your climate in your locker room. The whispers start happening. And that is what Vrabel's going to have to manage going forward, keeping everybody in line and in check and staying the course. Because if the whispers start amongst the players, like, what are we doing? Why are we making these calls? We need to do this. We do that. That's when you lose the team. And then if that's the case, and that would be visible in a lot of respects, and And that, again, we keep talking about the hot seat and the coaching. Those are some of the elements of an organization or a team that I look for. Like, how are the players responding to the coach? Right now, they still respond to him. They still seem to want to play hard for him. They just need to get some guys solidified. They need to get some things solidified. Again, it's hard to call plays when your offensive line is struggling. I don't care how good of a play caller you are. If you it doesn't matter if your guys are getting beat up front like they were today. So I don't know. I think the caller made some great points. I don't know what's the deciding factor to make a move one way or the other as far as head coaching or even the play caller and things of that nature. But winning and losing is obviously one major caveat to that. So we'll see what they end up doing. The beauty of it is it's only week 3. Next week's another one. It's another opportunity to prove yourself and be better. And if they win and you're right back at 4-4, you got 3 wins in the AFC or 2 wins in the AFC. Are we still feeling this type of way about where they're at as an organization, as a franchise? Or you say, okay, they beat a Bengals team that everybody was talking about potentially being a Super Bowl caliber team who is struggling as well.
Yeah, the Bengals averaging 13.5 points per game through their first 2. Joe
Who
Burrow.
would have thought that?
Yeah, just doesn't look right with the calf. He's questionable for tomorrow, Monday Night Football matchup agaginst the Rams. So
which is another team coming off a short week, by the way.
Yeah, back-to-back against AFC North teams coming off of a short week. We'll look at that matchup a little bit near the end of the show with the Eurofix look ahead. 615-737-1045. There was some frustration in the locker room after the fact, KD, from Jeffrey Simmons. Mike Vrabel, the play better, coach better kind of theme that you hear, especially after losses from the Titans head coach. Jeffrey Simmons was asked about that and just how that runs through his mind, hearing that theme again and again after losses.
I mean, but at the same time, that's getting old. It's time to actually do it. We've been hearing that message every week. I mean, now it's time for us to actually do it. I mean, we talk about it so much. We got to do this, we got to do that, but it's a mindset. Like, it's time to win. It's time to stop having the same things over and over again. We got to play better, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm a winner. I like to win, so it's time to just put it together and start winning.
It's a frustrated Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired of lip service. We just need to do it, and just fine print. Do your job the best of your ability, and then everything else falls in line. And I don't know if he's not throwing anybody under the bus, but he's just basically saying, I'm tired of hearing it. I'm trying to hear slogans. I'm tired of hearing statements. Just do better. I'm tired of hearing it too. That's everybody. Let's just do better. And that's basically what he's saying, man. Hey, I'm tired of hearing it too. He said, if you got pride about you, just do better. Work harder. Watch film. Know your assignments. Be in position to make plays. Make the plays when you are in position. Things of that nature. Just do better.
615-737-1045. Lethal Latin is next on the Lee Company Titans Talkback 1045 The Zone. What's up, Lethal Latin?
Afternoon, gentlemen. I appreciate you taking my call. I just kind of wanted, I guess, to add a little bit more to how Vrabel's on the hot seat. By the way, a big fan of the Lucas Panzica show. But I just wanted to say, for the past couple of years, we have just fallen flat on our face in the first half. And we have grinded out the second, and everyone talks about how, the Titans are gritty. Well, that's not what elite teams do. And I just feel that if we kind of focus more on, and I know this is kind of weird with Tannehill, but, put in someone else, focus on the air game, see what that can do to produce something else, because that offensive line is just, it's horrible. It's horrible. And I kind of feel like we need to make an understanding that there is a hot seat right there. There is someone's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call.
And there very well may be people in the hot seat. My opinion is Vrabel's not yet. I'm saying yet, just based on recent transactions. Like I said, the line in the sand was drawn, and she chose to keep the head coach and got rid of the GM, brought in a guy who seemingly has similar aspirations and philosophies as Vrabel, the kind of team he wants to build, at least how they present to us, they do. So that to me is not the question yet, and I'm putting a strong yet at the end of that. If you're talking about other hot seats, I think the one that has a stove on is obviously the quarterback, right? Because that's the next most visible position in sports. In football is head coach and, of course, the quarterback coach. So if that's the case, that's the next one. But then you look at the circumstances behind it. Is what's behind him a viable option to get you into that winning mode? And we don't have enough of a sample size to know. If we've seen Malik, he got opportunity because of injury last year. And if we go off of that, you're like, no, he's not ready. He looked decent in the preseason. And we haven't seen enough from Willis to give the guy a shot.
And from Levis.
Levis, I'm sorry, from Levis. So then it goes back to wins and losses. So if the season is abysmal, I'm going to throw a number. I keep using it: 1-7, 1-8, and you're halfway through the season, and you're just looking at it in the race. Now you can do like they did obviously last year. You can win those last 7 games, and now you're in the playoff hunt anyway. But that's hard to do. But say you're there, at the halfway mark, you've only won 1, maybe 2 games at the halfway mark. Do you say, you know what, let's go with the young guy, put Tannehill as a backup? I don't know. I just don't know if these guys are those guys to do that at that point yet. I don't know how they feel about them. I haven't seen enough of them in the preseason other than Malik, who we saw a little bit last year when he got benched to a guy who had only been here for a week. With Dobbs, who's starting for the Cardinals right now. So that showed the kind of talent he was, or at least mental talent.
Who have a 21-10 lead over the Cowboys, by the way.
And he's playing well. So I don't know. Again, after that, it becomes about we just signed, like Big Jeff not going anywhere. What's the cap number hit if you let Derrick Henry go? Can you get some value out of him by trading him for draft capital or player capital? Like, are people thinking about shaking the franchise up to that point where you're losing several marquee players to start over and bring in other guys? Or are you saying there's 1 or 2 pieces that have changed this whole trajectory of this season? Will the new quarterback change the whole season? I don't necessarily think so, because you still got some holes in the offensive line you got to fix up. So is there one offensive lineman or 2 offensive linemen that change that whole productivity from them? I don't know if that's the case either, because at different points they've all have struggled, and at different points they've all have played fairly well. So it's a rough thing, man. I think it's too early in the year to just jump on them and say this is definitively get rid of everything, blow it up, and then start fresh. Because there's some tough games coming up. But if they're sitting there right at 500, a couple games over 500, what would be the sentiment then? It won't be to this degree of anger, but I still think it would be like, man, we want to see more. We still want them to be competitive. We want to see a championship caliber team, but you still want your team to be winning.
That conversation about is he or is he not on the hot seat when talking about Mike Vrabel, I feel like gets lost in translation, KD. It's 2 different conversations, right?
Right.
With fans that believe he should or shouldn't be and are frustrated about a 7-game losing streak to end the year last year and losing 9 out of the last 10 games, which is so completely fair,
yes,
especially with how lifeless the offense was today, versus the organization. And the organization does not view Mike Vrabel to be in danger of losing his job.
I don't think
so.
And
that's just true.
Yeah.
And it's okay for fans not to want to hear that, especially today coming off of that loss, but that's just what the situation is.
Yeah.
Right? And they told us that. They signaled that to us with the changes they made in that front office from the transition to 2022 to 2023.
Yeah, I agree, man. I just again, outsider looking in, looking at the same signs, same signals, and what has happened in the last 8-9 months, I I just don't think so. I think this is a conversation we're having now based on the losing streak last year and what we've seen this far this year. I think that's probably expected. We're going to have these conversations like quarterback and head coach, and then everything kind of falls after that, like send them packing. But I think it becomes a conversation if they continue to lose. And now you get into that, I keep saying the midway point because you do a lot of evaluation at the midpoint, right? You know, because it's only you're at there, and you can either go one way or the other as far as at that midway point. And last year the Titans went the opposite way at that midway point, and they lost those 7 straight. But if you get to that midway point of the year and they are seemingly struggle, I think it would be fair to say then that there is a conversation beginning to how is he the guy of the future? But as of right now, today, September 24th or whatever it is, I don't think that's the conversation. I think the conversation is health of our players, getting their offensive line together and playing well, getting Tannehill together, playing well with his receivers, and getting Derrick Henry going. That's the main thing right now. That's the conversation. After that, it's going to be, did they do those things? And if their answer is no, then it's okay. What can we do to get these things happening? So
it's the Lee Company Titans Talkback. Lee Company, all you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045. You can also hang out with us on 1045 The Zone TV. More of your phone calls when we come back. Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 1045 The Zone.
play fake. Watson with a deep drop. A deep throw. Man is wide open. Amari Cooper for a touchdown.
That was Amari Cooper's only score of the day. 7 catches, 116 yards, and a touchdown for the veteran wide receiver who averaged 16.5 yards per catch as the Titans fall at the Cleveland Browns 27-3. Alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. 615-737-1045 is how you can reach us. Overall, KD, we've talked a little bit about the secondary today. Obviously, the conversation swirls around the offensive line and the offense, and rightfully so. But your takeaways from that secondary performance today with Amari Cooper having a big day and Deshaun Watson getting right in his best performance as a Brown?
Well, I think the secondary and defensive line play goes hand in hand, right? Like for the most part, your secondary is as good as the pass rush. And today they got after him, but he was able to escape and extend plays. And that's hard for any corner. Right? Even the best to ever do it can only cover for so long with the way the offenses guys have the advantage in some respects and ability of quarterbacks to put balls in certain places. It's hard to cover. But I think also, too, they had to put the big boy pads on a lot today. They were making a lot of tackles and being involved in that aspect of the game. Again, it's hard to sit there and crucify a group like that when so many other things went against them today. Like they, if they were getting sacks and forcing pressure on Watson and make him make some errant throws, we might be having a different conversation. They may have had a couple picks, some knockdown plays or whatever, but he was able to get away and extend plays and make some throws. Now, the last touchdown to Cooper, it looked like it was obviously a miscommunication, but it looked like both guys had their eyes on the number 1 receiver and not on Cooper, who was the slot guy, number 2 receiver, and went right up the seam. Wasn't even a hard throw. Safety just sat there, squatted, let him run right by him. Looked like his eyes were shifted somewhere else, and he just threw it. Easiest throw he made all day long. But that's communication. I think that wasn't anybody's ability or inability. That was a lack of communication of what the coverage was and what the route combination was and who had who. And so those are all, again, you get in the film, those things, type of film, type of plays, when you get on film, you look, you're like, dang, yeah, that we need to do this. You make adjustment. Now it's not a touchdown. Now you're talking about different down and distance, and who knows what happens from there. So, I mean, the Titans were going weren't going to win this game. But again, I'm just saying from the perspective of a defensive back, it's, you gave up a few plays today, but if the D-line was getting after him like they had before, especially in that second half, they really didn't even put a lot of pressure on him. But in that second half, shoot, I could go play quarterback if you ain't putting pressure on me. I may not be as good, but I can do it.
Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. All you need, visit them online at leecompany.com. 615-737-1045. You have a comment, a reaction to the 27-3 loss in Cleveland, a question for Dr. Kevin Dyson. Chris in Maryland is next. What's up, Chris?
I've just been watching the Titans for the last 3 weeks, and unfortunately I'm a displaced Tennessean in the D.C. area. But it just seems like to me that, like, Derrick Henry has, like, something like 30 or 40 carries the last 3 weeks. And it just seems to me it's not necessarily the other team that's taking Derrick out of the game. It's the Titans themselves and this new offensive coordinator. Because the commentators on TV, when I watch the game, they keep saying that he wants to play with Tajay Spears and see what he can do. Well, you don't do that while you're losing and while you don't have a lead. And the Titans have come out and they haven't established anything. They get behind. They do not have an offensive identity. And they're going away from the best player on the field, and that is Derrick Henry. And we all know that in the past, in the second half, that's when Derrick Henry starts getting his big yardage and his plays on the defense when you tire them out. But giving him 5 or 6 carries in the first half and then going to Spears is not doing anything for the Titans. And they've also been saying that when Derrick is in the game, that they know he's going to run, that the Titans are going to run. So what? I'm going to give you Derrick, and you're going to get a heavy dose of him the whole game until you stop it. You have to establish a run, and the run, and then you can do other things. But the new offensive coordinator, he doesn't seem to have a plan. He doesn't for establishing the offense. And it kind of reminds me of like when Shanahan took over the offense in Atlanta when he had Roddy White, where he intentionally went away from the best wide receiver that they had just because he had been there for so long to kind of prove a point. And the fans got mad at him because they were like, why aren't you going to him? But sometimes you think you're the smartest person in the room and you're not. Football is football, and instead of trying to be cute, let's play football. If they're not the best at pass blocking, let's run and do that. But let's establish something. And because if I was Derrick Henry, especially after a day, I'm walking into the locker room and I'm throwing my helmet because you're not giving me the rock. You're not letting me do what I do. And as much as people want to say or not, Derrick Henry is the offense. He's the focal point of this franchise. So play football and stop trying to do other things while you're losing.
Thanks for the call, Chris. Henry through 3 games, 40 carries, 143 yards, and a touchdown, averaging 3.6 yards per carry.
That's got to be, like you said, from the time he became the man, that's got to be career low first 3 games of the season.
See if we can find out. A year ago, Derrick Henry had 21, 13, and 20 carries in the first 3 games of the year. This season, it's 15, 25, 11. In 2021, in his first 3 games, 17, 35, 28, where Henry just came in on an insane pace in 2021 before he got hurt and went down with that foot injury. 2020, he started the season with 31, 25, and 26 carries. But it's a catch-22, KD, because how much of last year was spent talking about the over-reliance on Derrick Henry on first and second downs?
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how many times you could have handed it off to Henry today and what kind of difference that would have made. He was swarmed in the backfield each and every time.
That wouldn't make any difference today. I think I've said it before over the last several years. I think Derrick Henry has been the crutch of this team far too long. They had to find some other ways to be productive. And then when A.J. Brown was gone or traded for or whatever, it changed his productivity too. If you look at it, since that time, I think his productivity has changed a lot as well. Again, and I may be wrong, and I'm just saying that the reliance on him, the impact that he's had on this franchise and this team was evident for that 4 or 5 year window where he was just unstoppable. And then the injury happened, and then it just became, I think today was evidence of that. It just became, well, we're going to stop him, make somebody else beat you, especially when A.J. Brown was left, right? And so now it's who else can beat us? And we'll put it right back on the quarterback. Can the quarterback beat us? And right now they're daring him to beat them. And, well, if the offensive line is struggling, it makes it hard for any quarterback to be successful because he seemed skittish at times. A couple throws, I felt like that. There's one in particular, he missed a guy wide open, just overthrew him. And nobody's in the face or anything of that nature. It's just one of those things where I think he's under duress so much, he's kind of like looking for it in some respects.
Derrick Henry in the first half today had 4 carries for -7 yards, averaged minus 1.8 yards per carry. What is a flight home after a game like this like as a player? Where we talked about it, this is different, right? This is you were beat in every facet, and especially up front, where for a team that prides itself and has an identity of being the tougher, more physical football team, you were unequivocally not.
Yeah.
So, and that was you guys, right? That was the Tennessee Titans of Kevin Dyson and Blaine Bishop and Steve McNair. So what's a flight home like after a game like that?
It depends on the makeup of the leadership on the team, and that's including the head coach, but the veterans on that team, depending on where you're at in that phase of your ups and downs of that run, because everybody has like a 2 or 3, 4 year run and then 2 or 3 down, or maybe 1 year down and back up again. It depends on where you're at with that. But I'm saying all that to say it comes down to that leadership, head coach and leadership on that team. Some are like super intense and they don't want nobody speaking anything on the plane. There's some that's like, all right, we'll look at the film, we'll get better, let's move on from this. Enjoy this win for what it is for this ride, and we got this plane, we back over, and think about what you can do in this loss, but once you got this playing, it's over. We're going to the next one. But ultimately, most guys, either you get distracted playing cards, reading, falling asleep, or you're sitting there, someone like myself who's more cerebral, of thinking of what I could have done better, what I did wrong. Oh, man, I should have done this on that play. And my distraction was I played cards, and there was a group of us played cards. And so it just depends on that perspective. I was in Carolina, and you lost. There wasn't a whole lot of talking going on other than card playing and things like. Wasn't a lot of like hoop and hollering, But you could be in some franchises and you wouldn't know if they won or lost. I remember my first year in the league, we were the Chargers, and I think we were 4-4 and lost a few games, and I heard people talking and laughing, and it wasn't like in a disrespectful way. They didn't care. They're just playing cards, but they knew what I didn't know at that time was let this go and go on to the next one. And I was talking to Kenny Holmes and Samari Rolle, who both came from winning programs in Florida, one from Miami, one from Florida State. And I remember me and Samari were talking. He was like, we were 4-4, and he said, man, I have lost now more games in my first year as a pro than I did my whole entire career as a college football player. And we were 4-4. And I was like, dang, that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, and Kenny Holmes was like, man, he said, I never get used to losing. He said, I just can't get used to losing, because he was kind of the same sentiment. And Samari was like, me either. But I hate to say that you get used to losing, but I think you get used to the aspect that you know how hard it is to win in the National Football League, that I don't want to say you get used to losing, but you understand the losses, and then you go back, evaluate yourself, and try to get better to win the next one. And so it's an interesting dynamic, because college and pro, is the difference is the talent level is one, but in the pros, it really is week to week. You're being evaluated. You might be gone. You might be traded. You might be benched. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's a whole process, man, to go through the loss. That's why I said when you watch the film, it's never as good as you think it is. It's never as bad as you think it is. You use it as a learning tool that it is. You get better for the next week, and you try to win the next one.
615-737-1045. We go to Ryan in Nashville next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, guys. I got two comments. The first one is Vrabel's not on a hot seat. He's got two more cards he can throw in the fire. This year will be Ryan Tannehill.
Yep.
And then next year he'll be able to throw the coordinators under the bus.
Yep.
He's going to be here 3 more seasons minimum, which is good, because you want to be able to go into it if it really does go. I don't think it's going to go that bad, but if it does, you want to be able to start fresh with a GM and head coach. So you want to give this new GM time to kind of get his players in, that kind of stuff. I think this game of head coach, GM, head coach, where you're not hiring both at the same time, is not the best setup ever. But, yeah, he's got a couple more cards he can burn before he's the last one standing. And then the biggest mistake that I see from the start of the season was, if you're saying Derrick Henry can't be that bell cow, why did you not trade him when he had value? He's not going to have value after this season, because anybody who thought he was able to be a bell cow is going to be like, well, the Titans didn't think he could be one, so why would we give him a high draft pick for him? They could have got a second-round pick for Derrick Henry. If you're not going to give him the ball frequently and play action football with Ryan Tannehill, then there's no point in having Derrick Henry on the team at that point. And that's just the NFL. That's the business of the NFL. I love Derrick Henry. I want him to get the ball 30 times a game. But if you don't think he can do that and stay healthy, then you move him when he has value. After the season, he's not going to have value, because you're going to show that he can't be the bell cow, or at least you didn't think he could be. So those are kind of my two observations when listening to the show. Thanks for letting me kind of have my little rant.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Ryan.
That's mic drop me.
And after the season, contract's up.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what value there is or isn't.
And again, I go back to the conversations this summer, contracts with like Saquon and a couple other guys, and then they all got on the phone, on the Zoom call, I should say, together, and they talk about the state of the running back in the National Football League. And as we're watching teams like the Cowboys and the Chiefs in here in the studio who do it by committee, there's not very many teams that have the quote-unquote bell cow anymore. More often than not, people are using 2, even 3 backs sometimes collectively to if somebody gets hot, then he's the one that gets the carries. But more or less, they're using multiple ball carriers as opposed to one guy. And what Henry was able to accomplish in that window of time he did was unique in the sense that that's not the trend of the NFL anymore. If Derrick Henry was in my era, when you're talking about the Eddie Georges, Corey Dillons, the Fred Taylors, the how many big backs? I'm missing some. I'm going to some smaller backs now, like LaDainian Tomlinson, but there was Jamal Lewis. I'm trying to think, golly, Jerome Bettis. That was his era, and he's been very successful in his own era, but you look at those backs, he was fit right into that group. Well, the league has changed. The smaller scat back guy that can get you 10, 11, 12 carries a game, but catch you 5, 6, maybe 8 balls out of the backfield a game, that's the trend of the National Football League. So to that caller's point, which is why I say mic drop, it's if you're trying to lessen his productivity, meaning giving him fewer carries for the longevity sake of it, try to save him or split his load. If that's the case, then why not try to get some more out of his value when he was at the optimum of value, like when everybody was like wanting him. Now, especially, I mean, after this conversation, nobody Saquon didn't get that top tier money. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like now you're just gonna let him go for free?
It feels like there is a world where if Derrick Henry returns to the Titans, because contract's up, right? He's a free agent at the end of the season. So you're talking about a running back on the wrong age of, or on the wrong side of 30, I should say, that isn't going to have that impact in the passing game. Wherever Derrick Henry lands, it's going to be for minimal money, we'll say, right? So do you see a world in which the Titans were to bring Henry back in a way that the value of the deal would be the same, if not better, than anywhere else you would get. Yeah. And the identity of this football team fits you better than any other football team in this league, even if we are moving more towards Tyjae Spears.
Yeah. The reason why I say yes to him remaining here with the Titans is the personality of the head coach and what he wants his team to be about. He's a ball control, defensive-minded, hard-nosed, physical guy who comes from an era of football where it was control the line scrimmage, the time of possession, winning the kicking game, keep it within a score, give yourself a chance to win at the end of the game. One possession football. And a guy like Derrick Henry, who he knows, who he trusts, who he still believes in, I can see a scenario in which this is his best option based on the personality of the head coach.
615-737-1045. We go to Brett up next on Titans Talkback. What's up, Brett?
What's going on, guys?
Hey, man.
Hey, I just wanted Joe to break down that play at the end of the half because it was absolutely atrocious, and it was a pretty big momentum killer. And just who does the fault go to for that? Is it the coaches? Is it just the line play? Because how could they have faith after what we saw, for that game, that the line was going to hold up on that play? I'm going to hang up and listen.
You talking about the end of the half?
Yeah, talking about the sack. Thanks for the call, Brett. From Myles Garrett, third sack by Garrett of the first half, and essentially negated the Titans' ability to make it a one-score game in field goal range.
What they did was they brought 5 people and created 101s in a line, so you couldn't double Myles Garrett, right? So you create 101s, and once you get 101s, it becomes who wins that battle more often than not. And so what they did was they brought the 5th guy, so now all 5 linemen are picked up. What I saw was with Tyjae was the back. He released, and he released right there on the backer who looked like he was coming, but saw him release, and then he went and covered him. But I thought, dang, what a prime opportunity to throw your shoulder into Garrett, because it looked like he could have, but he avoided him to get into his route. But that was one of those ones where I thought, oh, man, if he chipped him, it's not a double team per se, but it does allow your tackle time to get set and be able to finish his block. But they created the one-on-ones, and Myles Garrett won it.
I'm watching it right now, the video of the sack kind of on a loop, and you're right. Tyjae Spears immediately leaks out into the left flat. Andre Dillard's left one-on-one with Myles Garrett, and Garrett just completely overpowers him.
And he beats him. Yeah. So, I don't know. I just remember that play for whatever reason. I just remember watching Tyjae like, dang, if he'd just chipped it. Because he could throw his shoulder into him, but that's probably not what the protection was called for. He's doing his job. And I just thought, shoot, at that point. But Myles Garrett is hard for anybody to block. He's leading the league in sacks for a reason.
Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. The Titans trust their home stadium to Lee Company to tackle their HVAC, plumbing, and electrical problems. They can protect your home, too. Your next play, visit LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, all you need. We do have a couple of lines open if you want to jump in. You have something for Dr. Kevin Dyson breaking down an ugly loss in Cleveland for the Titans, 27-3. 615-737-1045. We'll be right back. It's Titans Talkback on 1045, The Zone. (27-3), the final. The Tennessee Titans fall to 1-2. The Cleveland Browns improve to 2-1 in a dominant performance over the Titans at Cleveland Browns Stadium, 27-3. Alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. This is Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in. Mike Keith said it well, KD, at the end of the Titans radio broadcast on the postgame show. He said, oftentimes the stats don't tell the story, but today they most certainly did.
They tell a big story.
The Titans with 26 net yards in the second half. And how's this for a sobering number? And this may be more of a credit to Miami than against Tennessee, but the Dolphins had 726 yards of offense today.
How much?
726 yards of total offense in a 70-20 win over the Denver Broncos. 350 of those were on the ground.
Oh, God.
350 rush yards in an NFL game.
Those are college numbers.
The Titans, through 3 games, have 721 total yards for the season.
Oh, my gosh. They got the one-game production in 3. Wow. They put up college PlayStation numbers right now.
That was Georgia against an FCS school performance, right?
Yeah, not to disrespect any schools, but yes.
Sure. Well, the difference is the Denver Broncos didn't make a couple $1 million to go play the Miami Dolphins in Miami.
Man, come on, man. Golly, but they're explosive, and their play caller, he seems to be their head coach, Williams. He seems to be in tune.
You're talking about McDaniel.
I said McDaniel Williams. McDaniel, he seems to be very in tune with his players and having conversations with them. And I don't want to say he's innovative. I think he's timely with his play calling. And it also helps when you got the fastest guy in the NFL on your roster, too. Just hard to cover him.
Jalen Waddle didn't even play in this game. Was out with a
concussion.
concussion.
I know. They had him on my fantasy team
for Miami. 615-737-1045. Back to the phones as David is in Kentucky joining us on Titans Talkback. Hey, David.
Ooh, good route.
David, you with us? All right, let's go to Higgins in Hendersonville. Hey, Higgins.
Hey, what's going on, y'all?
Hey, man.
Boy, do we have some problems. I started thinking that, because ever since Tannehill came to Tennessee, he's been a pocket passer. He's never been, a scrambler unless he has to, and he's always been the type of guy to sit back, look at his routes, takes, 10 or 15 minutes to choose a receiver, and then throws the ball. But obviously with our offensive line problems, he can't do nothing. And, I try to listen to y'all all the time. I do love y'all's show, but, I get tired of hearing everybody make excuses for him because, if we had an offensive line that would do the job and give him time, that would be one thing. But obviously the offensive line is a problem. Why not alleviate that at least somewhat by putting somebody in there that can at least move their feet?
Mm.
And I'm just, I love the Titans. I'm born and raised here, but I tell you what, man, I ain't got nothing good to say right now. We got 99 problems, but Henry ain't one. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks for the call,
absolutely.
Higgins.
Yeah, I it's hard to disagree with what the fans are saying. I think our optimism comes from trying to evaluate the team in totality and the season in totality, not just on one game samples. We're talking about this game in particular, but I think from my perspective anyway, it's you think about what's the process after this fact. So if you get rid of Tannehill, meaning you bench him, is that going to change the trajectory of the season, especially right now? Is Willis, Malik? Yeah, I'm thinking Malik. I'm sorry, because he's the one I was about to saying Malik, but anyway, going back, say Malik because he has the biggest sample size, he has the most experience. Is he a better option than Tannehill at this point? And no, he's not at this point. However, if you get to that dire straits, that end, you're like, well, shoot, let's see what we got in this young guy. Do you go with him or do you go with Levis? Do you go with Willis or Levis? That's what I was messing around in my head. But anyway, do you go? Which one do you go with at that point? Just, do you do what you did in that preseason, kind of rotate between the two and see? I don't know. I just the conventional thinking and being like a former coach, I just don't think you do that, because that gives the sense that you have given up on your team. When you don't, as a coach, you really are trying to find ways to manufacture some success and some wins. And is doing something like that giving you opportunity to do that? I just don't think that's the case. So with that being said, how do you help Tannehill put him in position to be successful? Is it moving him out the pocket? I've always thought he was pretty decent out of the pocket, but really hadn't been able to get to the play action game because you can't run the football as effectively, if not. I do think he has some happy feet right now in the pocket, especially. And so he's not looking for the escape route as much as maybe somebody like we're watching right now is Fields. Maybe that would help him. Maybe that'll boost some confidence. Maybe if he got him like a nice 25, 30-yard jaunt, that'll help his confidence going forward to make some of the other plays. But, it remains to be seen. Again, we don't want to just throw the towel in completely just yet. We're just 1-2. You still got opportunity. You're at home against another tough opponent. You win your home games, and you split on the road, you're in the playoffs. So they held court in the first one. They got an opportunity to win at home.
We talked about the offensive line performances after the first two games as adequate, right? Good enough.
Yeah.
Which in the end was all you needed from this offensive line throughout the course of the season, right? Understanding all the turnover and the total rebuild that was that unit. Today felt like, did it feel like to you just a bottoming out? Kind of when it rains, it pours with that unit specifically.
It did, especially in the second half. I just felt like they just couldn't ever get no footing on the ground, and we're just getting kind of, I hate to use the word bullied, but they're getting pushed around a little bit. I think it started with that last drive to give up that sack. I just think that mentality was just different when he came out second half. I don't know if it was worried about what they're doing, if what happened in the conversation in the locker room, but that second half, Cleveland just dominated, and more specifically, they dominated up front.
Time for the Kroger Sacks for Cash. Titans certainly allowed their fair share of sacks tonight with 5. They did get home 3 times. Titans had 3 sacks, courtesy of Roger McCreary, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Danico Autry. So for the season, Kroger's donation to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee now stands at $2,100, courtesy of those 3 sacks tonight. Every time the Titans sack the opposing team's quarterback, Kroger donates $100 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee from Kroger. Through its Zero Hunger, Zero Waste plan, Kroger is committed to ending hunger in our communities. Speaking of the defense, Rod in North Carolina wants to talk about that side of the ball. He's next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Rod.
Yes, I just want to comment. I thought our defense, especially for the first 2 games, they have been playing pretty good football. I mean, if you look at, how the rules are set up for the offense, because offense are going to beat you at times. But overall, first 2 games, I believe our defense has been playing pretty good. I question Fulton a little bit, but other than that, we're playing pretty good. So, Vrabel will always talk about 3 phases. Got to win in 3 phases. Okay, I think the defense is decent. I think our kicking game is decent, but our offense is not doing good. And I think that song that he always sings about, we've got to win together, we lose together, it's not one person's fault, or we can't look at this area or look at that area, I think it's going to get old pretty quick. You heard Simmons. He didn't want to say it blatantly, but I think it's going to get old pretty quick. And, it's not good in the NFL when getting the first down is a major feat. That's not good in the NFL. We're talking about the NFL. And if we get a couple first downs, it's great. That's a great thing. And that's not, you're not going to win like that. You're not going to win like that. So I don't know, I want to piggyback off what Dyson was saying. Is it going to make the Titans better if we change quarterbacks? I don't know. But I didn't look at the stats, so I don't know how many first downs we have.
Thanks for the call.
Can one of those guys on the bench give us more than a couple of first downs?
Thanks for the call, Rod.
Yeah.
I can tell you, the Cleveland Browns had 23 first downs, KD. The Titans had 6.
And going back to the Willis Tannehill talk, I think everybody's probably getting a hangover of talking about the quarterback and Vrabel at this point. But I remember last year the conversation was maybe have a package or 2 with Malik in the game, with his ability. More or less, we're talking about his ability to run, his quickness, and just add another element to the game. And we saw a couple things where he had some opportunities to do that. Is that a wrinkle? But sometimes, not all the time, but in a situation like this where you're 1-2 and you just got your butt handed to you, it can reek of desperation when you do stuff like that because you're trying to figure out some offense. Are we in dire straits right now? Are we desperate right now that you start doing stuff like that, gimmicky, like gimmicks to generate offense? I don't know yet, but it's trending that way because they haven't. I mean, you won last week, but you had to do that late in a lot of respects. You finally found some kind of rhythm in the midway through the third, towards the end of the third and the fourth quarter. You got some kind of rhythm going and, pulling that game out, come from behind win, and that was great. But the other two, your offense has looked pedestrian at best. Today was worse than that. It was terrible. So if that's the case, if that continues to trend, do you start incorporating things like I say, they're kind of desperation type plays because they become gimmicks to help generate some offense? That could be something you can maybe look for, but I don't think the trade-off between quarterbacks, meaning Malik Willis or Will Levis, is going to be the answer anytime soon.
615-737-1045. Another half hour of Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company, reacting to the Titans' 27-3 loss at the Cleveland Browns. On the other side, it's Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045. Welcome back. It's Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company on 1045 The Zone alongside Dr. Kevin Dyson. I'm Lucas Panzica. Taking your calls until 6:30 to lead you into Sunday Night Football. Westwood One coverage here on The Zone as the Raiders host the Pittsburgh Steelers, breaking down the 27-3 loss from the Titans against the Cleveland Browns. You know, KD, the irony of all this is Titans didn't turn the ball over once today. They took care of the football, couldn't do anything with the football, but took care of it. But does that almost make it a tougher pill to swallow where it's not even self-inflicted wounds the way it was in New Orleans that came back to bite you? It was you were just straight up mano-a-mano beat, just punched in the mouth.
That's almost worse because if you were turning the ball over, you can point to that.
Oh, it was a tipped ball, an errant pass, a bad read.
Mm-hmm. But this you can't. You had to literally look in the mirror and say, "Dang, I got beat. I got my ass whooped." That's basically what you're doing right now. So this is almost worse. You'd almost rather say, "Man, we turned the ball over 6 times. Nobody can win like that." But this wasn't that case. You just got beat up today.
615-737-1045. Eric is in Canton. Next on Titans Talkback. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
So, first-time caller, season ticket member, holder. I want to give a shout-out to Section 340, Row Q.
Shout out.
I'm in Cleveland. Watched the game. Pitiful. We beaten Tannehill to death on the radio. Burke's out here catching balls like he's got massage oil on his hands from Dyson. we got the offensive line full of Dennis Davis. If we don't get this man some help, it's going to be all day. I don't care who we put in there. It's our offensive line is pitiful, and secondary on the other side is just as bad. Tighten up for life. Be in there next Sunday. Traveling to Indianapolis the week after that. I don't know what we're going to do, guys. Just ride out and pray for the best.
Thanks for the call, Eric. Is that the story of this game overall? Secondary got beat, yes, but the offensive line?
Oh, absolutely. Offensive football, like I said before, you can get on whatever device, your Chromebook, your iPad, your dry erase board, whatever it is. You can draw up the perfect play to every perfect scheme, but it doesn't matter if you can't block, protect, and move piles. And today they didn't. I can win every one route. I can run 10 routes and win all 10, and the tackle get beat or the guard get beat. Or the quarterback makes the wrong read or reads the opposite side of the field or something. It doesn't matter. So there could have been times receivers were wide open and they just couldn't get to the ball. There might have been running lanes to the opposite side, but the front side got smashed. Like it all starts up front. The whole thing starts up front. So even as a play caller, your confidence level in your plays, your plays you're calling, that even changes because you're like, God, what can I run? The offensive line is struggling. What can we do? And so you're trying to find something that they can get into. And if you can't, man, you get to the point you're like grasping at straws and just like, man, well, here, run this. I hope you can run. Now, I'm being facetious. That's not necessarily the case. But in the sense, though, that's what you're getting to. You're just like, man, they're struggling right now. What can we do to help them out? And today they just never, ever get over that hump. I think you talked about it. How many, 4 or 5 punts straight, something to that effect in their possession.
The Titans' possession chart today went punt, field goal, punt, end of half, the sack taken against Garrett, and then the second half goes, like you said, 4 in a row. Punt, punt, end of game.
End of game. So, I mean, it's hard to do anything as a play caller.
Best drive of the day for the Titans was by far that series at the end of the second quarter, where you're marching down the field, some chunk plays, Ryan Tannehill to DeAndre Hopkins, looking to get at least into field goal range to kick a chip shot and make it a 7-point game, if not a 3-point game going into the break, and then Myles Garrett getting around Andre Dillard, sacking Tannehill as the clock runs out, no timeouts left. Really the turning point and kind of a microcosm of what happened over the course of 4 quarters.
I mean, seriously, if you look at that, that's the bulk of their offense. 10 plays, 55 yards, and then no points, though. Everything else, even the field goal, was 4 plays, -9 yards. And After that, you go 6 plays, 15 yards. You go 3 plays, 2 yards, 3 plays, -7, 5 plays, 14, 2 plays, 2 yards in the game.
We're not in the business of silver linings after a game like this, but your kicker's perfect through 3 weeks.
Hey, the kicker's perfect, and the punter is stellar. He's averaging 53 yards and 53.5 yards per punt. I mean, that's stellar.
Yeah, Titans fans do not want to go back to the days where the kicker and punter are the best players on the football team, a la 2014.
Hey, if there's going to be Pro Bowlers, it might be them too.
615-737-1045. Chris in TSU joins us on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, man.
Come on, Dr. Dyson.
How you doing, brother?
Independence Day, Indy all day. You know what it is. So, man, this is the way I look at it. The Titans knew they had deficiencies on both sides of the ball during the offseason. They knew it, and they did little to address it in the draft. Yeah, they got Skoronsky, but you drafted a quarterback and knew you needed more help in the defensive backfield. That's the first issue. That means you really didn't address some of your major issues. They got D-Hop, which was great. But I don't, like the one the caller said before, I don't care if you've got Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Kevin Dyson, all of them out there. If you don't have time to throw the ball, it doesn't matter.
At all.
The second part is why do you call 7-step drops with that offensive line? That's got to be the stupidest play. Man. And then last but not least, our DBs, with the exception of Byard, which I feel sorry for him because he's putting these guys in the right position out there. You see him pointing to the DBs and telling them what you need to be. But when the ball is high, they seem to forget all sense of direction. I'm like, dude, why are you keeping your eyes in the backfield when you know you got the guy in the slot? He's not selling the route like he's running anything else except for a go route. He did not do a slug go. He did not do a slant. Did not do a post pad. The guy ran straight. You got your eyes in the backfield, man. You got set on fire. That's just the bottom line. I think schematically the Titans are screwed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's I'm not going to blame, Tannehill. I'm not a Tannehill basher because neither one of them young quarterbacks could have done anything either. They'd have got their heads tore off too.
Yep.
I'm not even going to blame. I'm really not going to blame, the running backs because if Henry's not getting called, he can't do anything. And let's be honest, he couldn't have done anything today anyway. That offensive line was like a turnstile. All of them like Dennis Daly out there. Every last one of them could have been Dennis Daly 1, Dennis Daly 2, Dennis Daly 3, Dennis Daly 4, Dennis Daly 5. All I've seen out there because everybody kept getting beat. We've got to do a better job properly evaluating talent and putting those guys out there to succeed. And that falls on the front office and the coaching staff. That's all I got to say, fellas. Once again, good to see you, Dr. Dyson.
Good to talk to you, bro.
Indy all day, baby.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for the call, Chris.
Cougar Nation. He spoke it. There's real talk. Like everything we're talking about, and sorry, man, offensive line. I ain't trying to bash you, but we are. It starts up there, and they struggle today. And listen, Myles Garrett has 6.5 sacks, 7.5 sacks in the season.
Yeah,
had 3.5 today. I think he's leading the league in sacks right now. He's a Pro Bowler, all pro. He's not trash. Just say that. Like he's one of the best in the game right now.
Is he the most physically gifted pass rusher in the National Football League?
If he's not, it's close. I think Watt is still very talented, but what Myles is his size and his speed and his explosiveness is just so different. But I mean, J.J. Watt, he's also on a tear right now too. TJ,
right?
Yeah, T.J. Watt. Yeah, he's also on a tear right now too. But he's explosive. So the Bosas, they're very explosive. The kid at the Lions, he's explosive. But Myles has the explosiveness, and he also looks like he's got the size. He can play interior. He's like bigger too. Kind of like I'm saying JJ Watt, because JJ was like that. JJ was a big defensive end, but he can play all four spots. You So on the interior, and he was kind of in mode. I don't know if Garrett is on that size, but or that mode. But he's a talented pass rusher. He's giving people fits. He's on a mission. He's on a mission right now. He's in that conversation for Defense Player of the Year right now for sure.
Micah Parsons, another one of those guys. He's got a sack as the Cowboys trying to come back.
That's another great pass rush. I forgot about him.
You talk about a speed rusher. Micah Parsons, a sack and a couple of QB hurries against Joshua Dobbs tonight, who's having a nice outing. 17 of 21, 189 yards, a touchdown for Dobbs. The Cardinals, KD, up 12 on the Cowboys with 3 minutes to go. Dallas has been red hot. They've looked unbeatable through 2 weeks. Arizona's been in games, blew a big lead against the Giants, but 0-2. Man, this would be a big win for Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals if they can hang on. It's been an interesting day in the NFL where the games have either, it feels like, been blowouts like Titans-Browns, Dolphins-Broncos, or Buffalo and Washington, or right down to the wire. Yeah, Baltimore, Indianapolis. I mean, there's great games today in week 3.
Yeah, which is probably more of the typical.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to the one possession away from the game tight fit, and just who has the ball last, so to speak, is going to be the one to win the game.
615-737-1045. Beth in Pleasant View is next on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Hey, Beth.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to hear from you guys. Hey, listen, I'm going to sound like a teacher, which I am, but just in summary, man, the line is the bottom line. I just don't think we can do anything without an effective O-line, and you guys have kept saying, if the O-line's just good enough. And that might be okay if we had a stellar quarterback, or vice versa. If the O-line was stellar, we could have a mediocre quarterback. But we can't have both. There's just no way. I just want to hear you guys address that. I know everybody else has, but there are quarterbacks in the league that could probably work with a mediocre line, but I don't think ours is one. And it's kind of the same problem with University of Tennessee. Although they had a great win this weekend, our quarterback is not Heisman level, and he has to have support. And man, I just feel like it's the same way with Tannehill. I think he can be good, but not with the line that we have. And it was painful today. Painful.
Thanks for the call, Beth.
It was painful today. Offensive line play, again, there's a lot of focus on it here late in the evenings on them, but there's been teams that have had some success where they've been able to do one or the other, and maybe the other aspect struggle a little bit, meaning, we're able to run a lot, but our pass protection, we need to get better. We need to get a better tackle to protect the blind side, whatever. But today, for whatever reason, they couldn't move the pile, and they had issues protecting the passer. And when you have both aspects of your game struggling from an offensive line standpoint, the rest of it doesn't even matter. I think you can still be successful if you can hide some of your deficiencies, meaning, if there's a guard struggling, maybe you slide protection one way, or you have the back stay in and help him, or tackle that's struggling, something to that effect. But today, it just seemed like it just didn't matter. And I think there was a good scheme from Schwartz. He was bringing 5 guys most every time, closing up every gap, basically creating one-on-one matchups, saying that my guy is better than yours. He's going to win that battle and things of that nature. You just had the Titans, and they did a good job of, ciphering through who the 5 guys were and picking them up. They just lost the one-on-one battles when they did.
Yeah, there's no doubt Jim Schwartz won the day against his former employer, the Tennessee Titans. What a season he has had through 3 weeks as the defensive coordinator of the Browns. I mean, Titans have faced, would you say, 2 of the top 3 defenses in the league so far between Browns and Saints?
Easily. If not front sevens, for sure. But Saints secondary is pretty good. The Browns secondary is pretty good too. But, easily they have faced 2 of the top 5 defenses in the National Football League right now.
Saints haven't allowed 20 points in a game yet. Now, they did blow a 17-0 lead late.
They did.
Today in Green Bay, they lose 18-17. Derek Carr leaves the game, does not return with a shoulder.
But again, look at 18-17. They're not giving up a lot of points. when conventional thinking is if you hold somebody to 17, 18 points, you get yourself a chance to win.
615-737-1045. Got time for a couple more here on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. All you need. Visit them online at leecompany.com. Jordan is in Springfield. Up next on Titans Talkback.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. Good. How you doing, man?
Good. I just wanted to talk about today. Like, you could tell from the beginning they weren't wrapping up. You know, we got pressure on the quarterback. I mean, there was a lot of QB hurries and a few hits, but, you know, when it came to finishing, we did get a few sacks, but they just didn't wrap up today. They blew too many assignments on third down. We had that fourth down that they gave up, and I don't know. I think this team's going to be okay. I mean, I think they still have a really good front seven. I mean, I think people are, you know, jumping the gun a little too quick, just like Tannehill today. The offensive line has been the weakest point, hasn't been good. But Tannehill, when he had time today and actually could plant his feet, he made good throws. I mean, he had Hopkins, and he made good throws. You know, Henry, he can't do anything if he doesn't have any holes. So, I mean, they can run him 30 times a game, but, I mean, he can have 30 carries for 30 yards. I mean, there's no holes because the lines opening up holes, and they're not holding their blocks. You know, like you said, I mean, going against Cam Jordan and Myles Garrett's not going to do any favors for him. Exactly. I mean, right out of the gauntlet. But, you know, I think I'm just kind of curious on y'all's take because I think honestly Brewer being the shortest and undrafted is probably their best overall lineman. And I don't know about left tackle as far as what he did in camp and preseason. You know, I didn't get to see him much, but the Duncan kid that they drafted out of Maryland, just for the fact, you know, throwing somebody in there that's young just to get experience, just to build towards the future. And then also what y'all's take was on, you know, the possibility of next year addressing it or, you know, why it wasn't addressed this year. I feel like when you have Mike Munchak available, which I know he ended on bad terms, but his offensive lines have always been great. And then you had, you know, people were down in the line, but when Russ Grimm was here, you know, they had one of the best units in the league. And, you know, just seeing about if it goes back to, you know, who the offensive line coach is, because, you know, when they had Russ Grimm, they didn't have, you know, they had good players, but nobody was, you know, an outright superstar, but he got the best out of that group. And, you know, I was just kind of getting y'all's take on what the possibility you think is of them shaking up the line and also just people just kind of calming down on the Tannehill situation. You know, the quarterback can't play a good game just like a running back if he has no time to throw the ball. So
thanks, Jordan.
Listen, thanks, guys.
Thank you. That's an interesting concept. There's some, I don't even know where Mike is right now, Munchak, but
he parted
Pittsburgh.
ways with Denver. That was his last stop. He was a finalist for the head coaching position in Denver. Then they hired him to be their offensive line coach in 2019. And February 2022, the last time Mike Munchak was a coach in the National Football League.
So he is, quote, unquote, a free agent right now.
Yes, he is a free agent coach in the NFL right now.
I mean, interesting. I mean, his offensive lines have always been productive.
Titans have a first-year offensive line coach in Jason Hoteling, replacing Keith Carter, who was let go by Mike Vrabel and now works for the New York Jets.
Yeah. Again, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. Do you bring a Mike who's not on staff as a consultant? We've seen that people do that before. We've seen the Titans do that before. Bring somebody in as a consultant, another pair of eyes on a situation to help out. I don't know. But I think they're going to expel every opportunity they can to see what they can do to right the ship. I think offensive line will look at this film and have to take some pride in themselves to come out and have a better ball game next week. They struggled this week, and there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. It started up there, started up front. You know, and we're giving the defense line a pass because for the most part they were pretty consistent, but they didn't help things, especially in that second half. As much. They missed some tackles. They missed some sack opportunities. They didn't have pressure that they needed. You know, again, we're just nitpicking. We're trying to find things and grasping at straws, trying to find things to get better at. But that's why football is the ultimate team sport, because you rely so much on the guys that next to you to do your job, to be able to be successful at your job. Like the lineman can be completely blocked up. Quarterback have all the time in the world, and receiver slips and falls or he doesn't get open or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just it's such a finite opportunity to be successful in a football because so many pieces are relied upon to be successful at any given moment.
Sherry is in Nashville here on Titans Talkback presented by Lee Company. Hey, Sherry.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
Has anybody said anything about Jim Schwartz knowing everything that we were going to do before we even started to do it?
Thanks for the call, Sherry.
Yeah, I don't know if he knew everything, but he's a student of the game. I'm sure he watched film. He used to have some tendencies. Like you cross that 20-yard line, he was going zero, cover one, bump in your face. You get 1-on-1. If you block it up, you got a chance to win. I don't know if he's doing it that much anymore, or that obvious. But he was very smart, very studious of the game. I think today one of the things he was doing was, springing 5 just about every time, especially on passing downs, and creating 1-on-1s. Sometimes he brought 6, but more or less he was bringing 5 and created 1-on-1s. And then he said, "My guys are better than your guys," and they play coverage.
I would have much rather, KD, the Browns defense dominated today because Jim Schwartz had access to Tim Kelly's playbook, but I don't think that's why.
I don't think that's what it was. I just think he studied the film the first 2 games. He recognized where his advantages were, and he tried to exploit those, and it worked today. And I'll tell you what, they had a great game plan last week against the Steelers, and obviously in week 1 in their win against the Browns. So he's calling some pretty good games. He's got some great puzzle pieces that he has at his disposal to work with, like Myles Garrett and guys like that. He's a well-versed, experienced coach. So, but he did not have access to the playbook. He just was smart, good instincts about him, dialed in blitzes when he needed to. It was just a good play, good call game by him.
Browns limited the Steelers to 55 rush yards on 21 attempts on Monday Night Football in Week 2, an average of 2.6 yards per carry in a 26-22 win that was aided by turnovers from the Browns, 2 defensive touchdowns by the Steelers' defense, or else the Cleveland Browns would probably be 3-0 after today. And again, the Titans rush for just 26 yards as a team on 15 attempts, an average of 1.7 yards per carry. Wendell in Murfreesboro, final call of the day on Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company. Hey, Wendell.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, so my thing is, this NFL is a business, and I know the caller was saying Tannehill, don't blame it on Tannehill, but I look at it like I coach high school basketball, and if I gave that type of performance like the Titans gave today, Monday, the next day, I got to answer some questions, and the thing about it is, I look at the Jets quarterback. Man, Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. They put the backup in. He goes out here and throws more yards than Tannehill. It's not – I just don't understand how the other teams have more yards passing and got subpar quarterbacks. We got to look at it like, man, this is a business. I get emails and phone calls from the Titans ticket office saying, hey, buy season tickets. But, man, until you get this situation taken care of, you can't keep going up on these prices on these tickets. You can't keep going up on these prices for parking. A drink and a nachos is $20. You got to give us something. The product got to get better because the math definitely ain't mathing. And I guarantee you, something's not right. Vrabel, I look at it like if this was a business, they would go in and say, okay, this ain't the right position for you. As much as Vrabel grabbed his knees on the sideline on Sundays, he probably need to be the line coach because, he's getting lower than the lineman, and we need to just do something, man. It ain't right. Fitzpatrick was the best thing we had, and he done played on 25 teams, and he done threw more yards than Tannehill. So that's all I got to say. It's not no more trying to ask for suggestions, man. It's just basically every Sunday, man, I love the Titans, but, man, I get tired of going to work on Monday trying to defend the Titans. And the good thing about it, Tennessee Vols won this on yesterday, so I ain't going to get too much grief tomorrow. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for the call, Wendell.
Yeah, that's a great call.
Well, we look ahead To next week's opponent in the look ahead presented by Eurofix. Let me remind you that Eurofix repairs everything European that you drive and below dealer pricing. ASE certified technicians, a local company that has serviced Middle Tennessee for over 2 decades. Visit EurofixOnline.com. Next week, the Titans are back home hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. Kevin Dyson in week 4. Bengals will be coming off a short week, just like the Cleveland Browns were this week. Obviously, that did not have much of an impact for Cleveland after their Monday Night Football loss to Pittsburgh a week ago. The big question right now about Cincinnati as they get ready to play the Los Angeles Rams tomorrow night is the health of Joe Burrow, who appears to just not be right off that calf injury that he injured early in training camp, held him out for most of training camp, and it's been a rough 0-2 start for Burrow and that Bengals offense. Tied for the lowest scoring offense in points per game through 2 weeks, 13.5, and he is questionable for tomorrow night's game.
And I think T. Higgins was held catchless for the first time, and just that juggernaut of offense what we have seen the past 2 years, this is not what you expected. Now watching Cleveland 2 weeks in a row, watching Monday night, of course, today, I can see why they gave him fits. Their defense, their pass rush, they play well together. Schwartz has them guys believing. The offense came to the table today and helped them with some room. And once you get room, you can kind of pin your ears back and get after the team. So watching them now, I got a different level of respect for the Browns, right? So that being said, Bengals was one of those ones. You look at your schedule, you're like, that's going to be a tough out. That's going to be a tough game. But now they have the same kind of question marks as we have. Now, I'm not saying they're over there bench Burrow. That's not the case. He's battling through injury.
It's more about get Burrow right.
Get Burrow right.
And is that, do you play him to maximize your chances to avoid going 0-3, or do you wait until he's as close to 100% as possible to get him out
and
there?
And that depends on how the offensive line's playing. It doesn't sound like they're playing well. But, again, we'll get to see it better tomorrow night, get to see them a little bit better, and then, of course, next week. But their offensive line has had some struggles as well. Their defense is not as solid as it has been as well either. So there's some holes in their defense as well. So we'll see, man. I want to watch them a little bit tomorrow and go from there. But this is a must-win, as every game in the National Football League is. But this is definitely a must-win for the Titans. So pay close attention, y'all, to Monday Night Football.
That's our look ahead presented by Eurofix. Of course, you can hear that game, a 7:15 kickoff, Rams at Bengals, right here on 104.5 The Zone tomorrow night. But coming up, pregame coverage, Westwood 1 for Sunday Night Football, Steelers at Raiders, a 7:20 kickoff. The Titans fall 27-3 at the Cleveland Browns. Titans radio coverage is produced by Philip Noel and Brad Willis. Studio producer Joseph Hunkapiller. Promotions director Rich Ferris. Director of sales is Hunter Rice. General manager Allison Warren. Operations managers are Charlie Cook and Paul Mason. The executive producer of Titans radio is Rhett Bryan. For producer Jackson Williams and Dr. Kevin Dyson, I'm Lucas Panzica. This has been Titans Talkback, presented by Lee Company.